Okay, welcome everyone. It's actually 1 o'clock or a little bit over past 1 o'clock, and I like to start. I have a little bit of OCD, so I like to start on time and keep my time. Welcome. My name is Jenny Simonsen. I work for ITS Norway. There was a question already today about ITS, and we all assume we know what ITS stands for, but ITS stands for Intelligent Transport Systems. So we moved from road now to maritime as well, and we will come back on that. And also why we are interested and why we're working with ITS, the maritime sector. First, we have some HMI rules. The toilets are there, that side, and also downstairs where you came in. If there's an emergency, we can use the stairs down and the room you came, or the door you came in, and also through the kitchen if there's an emergency. And we will meet next to the entrance on your left-hand side. We will also record this, so you will see and find out about this recording that you can share with your colleagues and others. We will share it in about one week. And also the presentations will be available for you in PDF. First, we will just start with a exercise in the sense of how many Finns are in the room. Please raise your hand. So I'm like this half one, so I raise my hand. Great. Any Norwegians in the room? I still raise my half hand here. And any Swedes in the room? There's one. Any Danes in the room? There's one. Anyone from Estonia? Yes. Anyone I have forgotten? Please enter. Anyone I have forgotten? Anyone that says, well, I'm not one or any of them? Excellent. Oh, yeah. From which country are we representing? Excellent. That's very good. Like that. This webinar is done in cooperation with ITS Estonia, ITS Norway, ITS Finland, and Finntrafic. But we also place it under the umbrella of Nordic Plus. And the plus is including as well. And Nordic Plus means that we want to work cross-border and cross-mode to include all the transport modes to working for a safer, more sustainable and more secure transport sector. I will be your moderator today, and welcome to this historical building. I had to Google it up a little bit. I've been to a wedding here ages ago, but it was built in 1913, and it was served as for the Russians, for the officers, their place. And after the independence, the Finnish independence, it's been served as a military kind of a building. So it's a very nice area where we're having this webinar. And please, maybe I just introduce Marko and Alex. Where's Alex? There behind, from ITS Finland. In the beginning, who has been part of organizing this. After each presentation, I would like to activate you. So if you have questions, Alex behind there has the microphone. As we're recording this, we want you to use the microphone for the questions in order to be in the recording. So please ask questions. And if you're... Yes, raise your hands. And if you don't have questions, I will ask some questions, and I'm not going to point at you. I promise. Marko. Now, maybe we should use the microphone there, but maybe what was the question? Could you introduce Maria from ITS? Yes, I can introduce Maria from ITS Estonia. So of course I can. She's the CEO of ITS Estonia that's also part of the hosting this program. Thank you. And thank you, Marko. Great. Without much more ado, if the kind of a rules and the setup for the seminar is clear, we will go ahead with introducing Karri Salmi, who's the CEO, not CEO, but the chairman of the board of ITS, the chair of the board of ITS Finland. Welcome, please. An applause.
Thank you. I think these mics are working, are they? Good. Hey, great to see everybody. Welcome to Helsinki, welcome to Finland, and first of all, welcome to Maritime ITS seminar and workshop. It's great to see you all here. As Jenny said, this is a chaired seminar and workshop arranged by ITS associations from Estonia, Norway, Finland, and also with the Finntrafic. Finntrafic is a company which provides and develops traffic control and management services in all traffic modes. And this seminar's mission and the following workshop is to create an expectation of how the Nordic region can enable the sustainable, standardized and collaborative multimodal ecosystems. We look at the barriers, we look at the challenges and also technological possibilities. And also from the regulation side, how the regulation is an important factor. Shipping is highly important for Finland, especially on these days, because Finland is almost logical way as an island. And shipping plays a highly important role for Finnish national economy and security of supply. About 80% of Finland's foreign trade transport takes place by sea. And regarding exports, the figure is much higher, it's over 90%. Digitalisation, IoT, artificial intelligence, satellite systems are examples like for the answers to many maritime challenges. And those answers we try to find on this seminar and workshop for the question how maritime ITS can enable a more sustainable and digitalized world. This event is also part of the continuum in which ITS Finland organize events regarding the future of different transportation modes, their cooperation and multi-mobility. Dear friends, you are warmly welcome. Du är hjärtligt välkommen. Olette solia tervetullut. Lämpimästi tervetuloa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karri, for those good introduction to this webinar and seminar. You mentioned workshop, and for those who doesn't know, we will have a workshop tomorrow at the Scandic Marina Hotel, where we will continue talking about this important issue, but also dwelling more into standardization and more technology side, but also on the cooperation, what we need to do in order to harmonize the standards, but also how do we work when we talk about multimodal and cross-mode and cross-country. So you're warmly welcome. It will be hosted by us and Finntrafic, by Olli, and also Ernst Frödset on there. So behind there you can raise your hand. Excellent, thank you very much. So you are more than welcome to join there. Excellent, then we said that. Sorry, is there a question, Alex? You need to use the microphone. Oh, okay, you're the presenter taking care of that. Next one is Trond Hovland. He's the CEO of ITS Norway, so he will basically be my boss. So please welcome Trond.
Okay. I don't know who's the boss, Jenny, anymore. But anyway, my title is CEO of ITS Norway, so I will give a brief introduction to Maritime ITS, and it's really a pleasure to be here. I'm glad that I was persuaded to come. So I'm not quite sure of the title, if that's logistic and sustainability, but that's what I called it anyway. So let's move on. I don't know how many know ITS organization well, so I don't need to explain that. Is that like a hand up if you know them well? Okay, so there, yeah, a little bit. So maybe I have to explain it. Then I might need some help as well. Okay, ITS associations are membership associations that work for the industry and academia and the public sector to foster more ICT in the transportation sector. So it's quite broad. Now we have been working on land ITS for a very long time, and now we are moving into the maritime sector. I will come back to that, of course. Anyway, our slogan is smarter, safer, and more sustainable transport with the use of ICT. So that's the main thing. So we can work with a lot of things that combine those things, everything from ticketing to navigation. So everything is in our fold of that. So I think I would go through these things. What is ITS Norway a little bit, and then what are the priorities of the ITS associations? A little bit of emission and motivation. Maritime ITS, what is the definition of it? And we're just starting this new way of thinking, and then I will sum up sometime. So an ITS association is a network. We are established 19 years ago in Norway, but we have been doing ITS for like 30 years in Norway. So the organization is slightly younger than the kind of the activities that we've had in the area. We are a fairly small ITS association compared to many others. We are 80 plus members. And we are well connected in the Nordics and also in the world. I think I will start to say that maybe ITS Finland and ITS Estonia are among our friends, closest allies in the Nordic region and in the Baltics. But we also have a network called Nordic Plus, which is an association of the Baltics and all the Nordic countries within ITS associations. And in addition to that, we also are members of ITS Nationals, which cover all of Europe with 29 different associations. So we are really good connected when it comes to development of technology within the ITS era. That means everything that goes on transportation and mobility. But in addition to that, we also travel the world regularly, and we work with ITS America, Canada, Korea, Japan, Australia, New Zealand. So we are a global family of ITS association as well. Our main purpose is to work with all modes, but the road has been the most dominant road in ITS for like the last 20 years. Now we are seeing a little bit more kind of interest to move on to other modes. I think ITS Norway and ITS Finland are the first actually movers in this area. We are really changing the course a little bit, and we are also moving into other realms in the time that comes. I will also come back to that a little bit. But seeing those four, air, sea, rail and road, as one transportation system is very important. You cannot solve anything with only one mode, and nobody uses only one mode either. So we normally portray it this way. We have traveler-centric or passenger-centric, and we have goods and freight-centric kind of value chain. And we try to bridge the gap between the train and the bus and the airplanes and the boats in a way that the passenger and goods are moving in one direction, but information that helps them actually do the travel is traveling in the opposite direction. So we need platforms, we need data sharing, we need a lot of standards to cope with all of that kind of interaction between the digital world and the physical world where we actually live. So this is our way forward. Another maybe more complicated way to look at this is this one. Here we have 4 boxes with each of the mode in each. So we have the coastal or the maritime to the left, and then we have road, rail and aviation. Each of them have their own set of authorities, they have their own kind of infrastructures, they have their own kind of standards and technology that works in their kind of area. And in those areas, they are well known and well understood. But the switch between them are not that good understood. So in those green boxes at the bottom of the columns there, We have, on the road side, we say that we work with mobility and automatization in the road. So we have to learn what are the frameworks for and the scope of what is maritime ITS that is similar. So if we really want to have data sharing between maritime and road sector, we will need to have a defined landing place for the information in both areas. So coming out of the road, we have a lot of knowledge on how we built that up over the years, and we try to mimic that also in the maritime sector. And then later we will do rail and aviation. But maybe most important at all is the hubs. It is like the transfer node where we actually do the shift between the modes and transport forms. That is also not very good understood, and that is also very different from if you know one port, I've heard, you only know one port. So there are like thousands of ports in the world. So you need actually to learn a lot of each to what is the combination, what is similar in each of them. So we will also try to dive into that in the future. But for now, we are working on maritime ITS, but we are learning from the road sector at the moment. And in the road sector, we used to work with mobility. And this guy, I'm sure you know him, that's Sampo Hietan, who is the founder of Mass Global and the Vim app. He has kind of done a lot of the integration of the mobility on land, the bus, trams, metro, taxis, rental cars, carpooling and stuff like that, and combine it in a platform where you can move seamlessly through. I don't know how successful Vim is. I don't have the details of that, but he is pointing in the right direction. We need to make it optimized, seamless, and integrated way of moving ahead in the future. So this is something that we can learn from and also take with us into the maritime sector and do maybe through ports and stuff like that. Also, when automatization. In Norway, we have had a project on shuttles, automated shuttles, since 2015, and we have been following them and also done a research project to monitor the development of these shuttles since 2015 until 2020, almost 2020. So we have a good knowledge base on how to transfer manual operated vehicles into to automated vehicles. So now we are moving into small cars and big buses in Norway, and we're also following that very careful. So we are members of the EU CCAM Association and TNITS Association, which is the EU kind of way to move this sector forward. So we are at the heart of that in the road sector. So how can we do that the same thing in the maritime sector? So, but the thing is, why are we doing this? And there has been a lot of things going on in the EU the last maybe 10 years. And at the moment, we are facing a lot of damage of the road infrastructure in Norway. And this picture could have been a maritime picture. This is a severe flooding that happens about 1 year ago in Norway. And to kind of stop these kind of things to happen, the EU has set very harsh climate targets. We should be climate neutral by 2050, with an intermediate kind of 55% reduction in 2030, which is only 6.5 years ahead of us. And of that chunk, transport stands for like 25% of the emission. And road sector does a lot, but in the UN Sustainable Development Goals, they say that the logistics in the maritime is really, really important to follow up on as well. So if we are taking this this kind of target from the EU seriously, we don't have much time, and we need to do a lot of drastic things. So by comparison, we have to reduce the emission from the transportation sector by 95% before 2050. By comparison to that again, Norway reduced its emission 4.6% the last 30 years, in spite of the EV policy and the incentives and big program to green the maritime sector in Norway. So it is really difficult what we are trying to do. It's like almost impossible. Of course, getting there is to do the fuel thing, that you kind of use greener fuel. That will help a lot, and a regulation that will ban transport or use of cars or use of God knows what to get there. But ITS will play an important role in the years to come because we don't get to the full clean fuel very quickly. So we need to use digitalisation and optimization and integration in order to help move that target forward. So it leaves us with a complex task, but also tremendous opportunity on how to get there. So what is not reached with clean fuels, like that's the blue part of the ring, the red part is like the ITS component of it. That is to use each vehicle better, fill up the buses, fill up the cars, fill up the vessels, better use of ports and terminals, do optimization and integration and automatization. All these will help. It will lower the emission, it will lead to fewer accidents, but also to reduce costs. So there's a lot of benefits in actually going in the direction that the EU will. And what we are starting to call the innovation room is the gap between the climate goals that is on the top here and the today's technology and technology and knowledge base and services. They are at a certain level, and between there is a gap. In that gap, we can innovate and we can move on and we can make sure that we have deliverance of zero-emission technologies and some at the same time boost the industry in our countries. So we are trying to frame what we are doing in the Maritime ITS in that kind of innovation room, because I think we can actually lift ourselves when we kind of conceptualize it a little bit more than we have so far. So moving on from that, Maritime ITS, what is it? And it is very hard to define, but I'm very glad that we have Ørnulf Rødseth in the audience, because in some of his notes I found these definitions, and in an email to me he also kind of said that this should be the definition of it. And in the notes I found that the international cooperation to integrate a worldwide maritime digital ecosystem with interoperable products and services will be kind of the core of it. But at the same time, we realize that shipping only takes you from port to port, and you still need to travel from the port to wherever you're going with the goods or the passenger. So that is an important thing. And to kind of package the standards and the nautical and operational and administrative domains into one package that is called Maritime ITS, we have a similar concept on land, which is called CCAM. That is cooperative, connected, automated mobility, and cooperative ITS. These are the packages that already exist and works on land, and it's in the regulation of the EU, so it's pushing in the right direction. So we have tools that we can use in the maritime that is already developed in the land side. But then again, we also need to connect the Maritime ITS to land-based architectures to actually be able to exploit the full circle of what we're doing, to make sure that we use and exploit the resources that we have on land and on sea the best, and also to use the information that resides in ports and terminals much more efficient than we do today. So this has led us to a kind of this picture, which is a project that we started like 1.5 years ago. We have taken the concept of the maritime side combined with the port and terminal on land and divided up into 5 conceptual areas. And the first is what's going on in the ship. That is like not the focus here, but the focus is the e-navigation, the communication between land and ship, and also what's going on in the port and terminals. So dividing this kind of this big elephant into these 5 pieces makes it easier for us to kind of package what we're doing, because each of these 5 has technology, standards, services and experts that kind of work together to make this fit in the future. So this makes up like the background for Maritime ITS, combined with the last slide with the statement on it. So then we are just starting, as I said, and this might be a long stretch. We are together with ITS Finland. We are doing the Nomad project, and together with, I think also, maybe not, I don't think, I know that Estonia is a driving force behind Diamond. And these projects are not meant to be maritime ITS projects. But if you look at them, they will solve the riddle of how to move through from land to sea and onto land again. And if you go on Google and you want to drive over the Baltic Sea or something like that, you will see that the ferries are there. But you still not can buy the service from the ferry companies. You have to do that separately. So how can we kind of combine that into one information stream that makes it easier to plan and book the journey, both for goods and passengers? So that's like the diamond ID. And in Nomad, that is also a basic kind of stepping stone for the Nomad project. So we're actually doing this. And on that journey, we are met with 2 EU regulations that will kind of push this even harder. And then it's the multimodal travel information service and the multi-digital mobility service, which is pushing to solve the riddle of multimodal travel and payment for the trips and payment for the goods that you actually can move it through train, bus, boat, and then again train and bus, and then all the way to your home. And we are doing another project, Savas, which is a small project where we are piloting small vessels crossing a river in Norway autonomously. I'm sure you do more about that here in Finland than we do in Norway. But anyway, this is to scale up, and we have been following that project as well. I think it's about to be terminated now in a few weeks, actually. But this is also a maritime kind of project that we have been part of in ITS Norway for a while. And then we are working with our friends in South Korea. They kind of learned that we were doing the Maritime ITS, and they took that kind of concepts and they turned it into a suggestion for a new standards on how to move goods through a terminal or a harbor from the ship onto the terminal, onto road and rail afterwards. So we made a dent in this. We kind of pushed it a little bit further, and then other kind of organizations pick up on it and try to expand it their way. And we are also doing another project, which we normally say we are going to drive an autonomous heavy-duty vehicle from Rotterdam via Hamburg and Gothenburg to Moss in Norway. But what we are actually doing is to see how an autonomous vehicle can interact with the ATVs in the terminals, and how you can load and unload automated and interact with the vessels in the ports. So it's actually a slightly maritime project, even though it's like a land-based idea that came up. So next project here will be to make a similar blue line, maybe red line then, on the sea, entering the same ports, but then do it with an autonomous vessel instead of the road sector. And we are doing a lot more in the standardization area. We are, for those of you who are familiar with ITS standardization, maybe not many of you, but ISO, I'm sure you heard of. ISO have committees that standardize GIS, Geographic Information Systems, and also ITS, and also all the maritime standards. And how can we look at them and see how they fit together or not? So we have been doing that also for the land-based ITS for many years now. We have something that is almost to the right here, Joint Working Group 11, GVG 11, which is a kind of a little group headed by ITS Norway that looks at how GIS standards can work together with ITS standards. And maybe can we also do that between the ITS and the maritime sector. So this is not started or even contemplated yet, but these are the things that we need to work with in order to kind of promote this. So I don't know how I'm on time, but I'm wrapping up now. I'm seeing Jenny is nodding. So we have done a lot of things, and we started out working with the coastal administration in Norway, and we made a maritime strategy together with them for ITS Norway. But I think also we made some supportive actions for the coastal administration. And I think you are going to give a presentation later, so you can introduce that from your own point of view, Jon Leone. And then we have had the ISTS project together with the coastal administration and Sintef Ocean. So we are we are starting doing this for real. And for all this good work that the coastal administration did to help promote maritime ITS, they got the ITS award in 2020. So we really appreciate what the administration and the public authorities are doing for us in this area. So we have also solved the kind of the riddle of how to test this, and we have initiated a test arena for autonomous shipping around the area where the coastal administration is situated in Norway. So we have done a lot of small things, and I think they will add up to be a big thing. And even hired one person, Ronald Rødseth, who you will see tomorrow, that will work for us to promote this further. And we have done a lot of this kind of seminars and will continue to do that. So we are moving this together with ITS Finland. We are moving this forward. So at the end, Maritime ITS is becoming kind of a technology concept where you have actors, you have standards, you have technology that you actually can point to. And for the future, we think that Maritime ITS will drive automatization and connectedness in the maritime area and enable cross-mode sharing and streamline logistics through terminals and harbors, which is really badly needed to lower the emissions. And Maritime ITS will thrive in that innovation room that I showed you earlier. So I think I'll wrap it up with that. Thank you so much.
Very good. There was quite a lot of information there, Trond. Very nice. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. I want to ask about that. How do we make Maritime ITS known for EU more, that it creates an area for the industry to actually make business?
That's a very tough question because ITS for roads isn't very well known yet. So, but still, I think DG Move, which is the Director General for mobility in the EU, are aware of us at the moment, and they have also asked questions about this. So I think we must continue to work with the DG level in the EU to do that. And I don't know exactly how to do that, but that's the way I think we have to do it.
What about, you show the picture of breaking the silos, and that's also quite tough. What are the kind of next steps and moving on? How do we cooperate further?
I think it's like you need to make awareness, much higher awareness of how the transportation sector is decomposed into these segments like domains, and I think we all have to realize how tough it is to get through a terminal, a bus station, a bus stop, and a harbor to solve it. And I think that if we don't kind of attack those most difficult places to work with ITS, we won't solve it in the end. So there is a whole new era of working issues in the hubs, or we call it transfer nodes. I don't know if that's a good kind of term, but that's what we call it.
Okay. Sorry, we have a question here from Marco. Yes, we need to use the microphone.
Yes, thank you for excellent presentation. About this ITS maritime kind of industry, do you have any ideas or estimation what is the market size of this? Is there money involved, or are we only saving the planet?
I think for the industry, there are tremendous opportunity to prosper in this area, and especially when you see the Nordic countries' experience with shipbuilding and technology development. Finland has one big chunk of that. Norway has a different chunk of that. I think we have to build on what we are good at already. And we have in Norway both port operation systems, so we have ship operating systems. You have technology that is very worthwhile taking into this equation. We both build ships. So we have this legacy of industrialization in the maritime area that I think will be an easy stepping stone compared to for Norway and Finland, maybe in the car industry, where we don't have the same legacy. So I think if we work together on this, we can really make a difference. And I think if we didn't do it for the industry in ITS Norway, we wouldn't do it, because that's the only way we do it. Now we are lucky that we have this tough emission targets that we need to reach, which forces into that innovation room, and that must be equally important to reach the targets, emission targets, as it is to help the industry prosper. I don't have any numbers.
Excellent. Yes? Someone ask a question?
Yes, thank you very much of your great and insightful presentation. Out of curiosity about one of the examples what ITS Norway is doing with the South Korea, this standardization initiative, just wanted to hear if you can elaborate a little bit more what was the background and the motivation, why in South Korea you're doing the initiative?
I think that's quite simple. I showed you also the joint working group 11. That is already has been in existence since 2018, 17, 18. So that exists, and in that group we have Koreans, Japanese, Canadian, we have like I think 23 different nationalities working on the harmonization between GIS, Geographic Information Systems, and ITS. We have made a plan for how to integrate GIS with ITS. In that work, we see the importance of also reaching out to the other domains like rail and maritime and air. After I gave a presentation on Maritime ITS in that group, and also in a little bit larger standardization group 2 years ago, South Korea was the first to pick up on that. And I think they have a national strategy to become the best in automated shipping. So they also need the automatization of the ports. So that was the way into that. And I think that this suggestion from South Korea will go through in 17th of May this year. Then it will be a project under the Joint Working Group 11, so we will have control of it. But it's flattering that they use the word Maritime ITS.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Trond, for your time. Warm applause for Trond for his presentation. For the only Dane in the room, it's not too bad to be the only Danish. Let me see if I can, Alex, otherwise you have to help me, but there we go. There you go. So please welcome Thomas Christensen. Welcome. Thank you.
So, thank you for inviting me. My name is Thomas Christensen, and I am affiliated with the Maritime Connectivity Platform Consortium, the MCP Consortium, as I think is listed in the program for this event. So I'm going to sneak in MCP as a topic under the title of my presentation, which is Digitalisation of Maritime Services and the Digital Incubator. Thankfully, these things are very related. So in my preparation for this presentation, I did prepare. Then I asked ChatGPT, I'm sure you've tried the same, to make me a manuscript for a 20-minute presentation of the Maritime Connectivity Platform, MCP. And it didn't do a very good job. So initially I was like, oh, I'm not obsolete just yet. But I was thinking, okay, maybe this is also because we've actually not been good enough at promoting this and writing articles and doing that, because then it would probably have done a better job than what it did. But anyway, interesting exercise. So, about digitalization in the maritime domain. This has, of course, been a very hot topic and something that has been in a focus for many, many years. And of course, the potential here, and specifically in the maritime domain, which in some areas really are in the digital stone age. In other areas, it is very advanced, but in some areas, it is in the digital stone age. So the potential is enormous, both with regard to safety, with regard to security, efficiency, sustainability. Anything can improve if we do this thing right. But things have happened, but a little bit slow. One of the big things was the the IMO initiative back in 2006 on e-navigation, which was also mentioned in the previous presentation. That was a very big initiative by the IMO, now quite a long time ago. I think my hair had a different color back then, and I've been with it, with Jon Leon, back from that time. And it was a really painful process. I think the first couple of years we were discussing whether e-navigation was going to be written with a capital or lowercase e. So that was the beginning of that. But things has happened, and I think one of the big milestones in e-navigation was the agreement to use S100 as the data modeling framework within e-navigation. This was also mentioned in the previous presentation. So that was something concrete that will help us in the digitalization of this area. And a lot of work has been done in that area, in particular in IALA and IHO, in making standards of the data models that we're going to use and the data formats that we'll be using, following this S100 framework. That is great, and we need that. But we need something more, because we need to have standards for how the data is exchanged. And I think some areas of the maritime world have been used to not really, I mean, this all comes as part of the box. We have an AIS system where, well, it knows which frequency to exchange data with, it knows how to interpret the data, and it will portray things, it will just be text. And the same with Navtex and these legacy systems from the digital stone age of the maritime world. But now we really need to figure out how do we exchange data. And into these days of using contemporary technology, it's done through services, service-oriented architecture. So we need to define services that exchange the data. And now we need to again, be careful with the terminology here, because that was also a very big source of confusion in e-navigation. That was the term services. In e-navigation, we have the term maritime services, but these services do not specify how we exchange data. These are very, very high-level services, like, for instance, vessel traffic service as a service. That's a very high level. But now we have the introduction of services on a technical level, which in this area very appropriately is called technical services. So we are beginning to define technical services, which actually does explain how data is being exchanged. So you have maritime services on the high level, could for instance be vessel traffic service, and then you have associated technical services for VTS that could for instance be traffic clearance service, which is one of the concrete ones that we are working on, or delivery of agent service or something else. So we're beginning to have standards for services, how we exchange the actual data. So that is great. So we are getting somewhere, but we need something more, because in principle, when we have a technical service specification, we can implement it, we can exchange the data, but we need also to be able to be sure that the actors that are actually exchanging data are who they say they are. So we need means of authentication. We need the entities that exchange data to be able to prove their identity. And here comes the Maritime Connectivity Platform, the MCP, because the MCP has at its core a maritime identity registry where all entities that need to exchange information can be registered. They can be given a unique identifier, because you also need to work with that when you exchange data and work with digitalization. They'll get a unique identifier, and they'll get a cryptographic key that they can be used to authenticate themselves with cryptographical means. And this also facilitates signature of data to protect integrity of the data that is being exchanged, and encryption if you want that, if you want to keep data confidential. So that's what can be done with the MCP identity registry. We need more, because we're going on to the big devilish internet, where there's everything imaginable and then some. and anybody can connect on the internet. It's not like, again, with the AIS or the Navtex, you are in a local area, you tune into some frequency, and here we go, we can get the data in this local area. On the internet, you can get, in principle, everywhere, everything from everywhere. So we need a way to find the services in a reliable way. Again, MCP to the rescue, we have a service registry. So services are registered in the registry, and you can look up for the services in this registry. So you can find services like, for instance, navigational warnings provided by authorized providers that are authenticated, and you can search for geographical areas so you can find services in the areas that you need to find them. So that's another element that is needed in the digitalization of the maritime domain. In particular, because we're moving around, we cannot make solutions locally where people are agreeing, okay, we'll do it this way. We need standards where a ship going into a VTS center or a port where it's never been before, it still needs to be able to exchange data. The MCP has a third component, that's a messaging service, and that has the capability of exchanging data, where you can, for instance, use the aforementioned identifiers as a sort of an address, and you can also have a unified interface for use of different communication channels. So you can use the same interface using internet, or using VDES, for instance, which is not using internet protocol, or other types of communication channels. So that's another element of the MCP. So these are, of course, very generic. It comes from the e-navigation process, but it is very generic. The need for authentication is I mean, you need that everywhere when you do digitalization. So it can be used in e-navigation or in ITS or anything as a platform to support digitalization and exchange of digital information. Then one very, very, very important point is that there is not one MCP, because that wouldn't work. Unfortunately, on this planet, we do not, and maybe the Finnish, Estonians, Danish, Swedish, Finnish, we get along quite well, but that's not to be said for the whole planet. So we can't have one organization that will support digitalization with these entities and cryptographic keys. That would not work, unfortunately. That would be easier. So the MCP is a decentralized concept. There will be several, if not many, MCPs with different registries and different identity registries, service registers, messaging services. So in using MCP, you can use an MCP service provider that you trust. You can even set up your own MCP if that is what whoever organization wants to use this wishes to do. So that is a very, very important aspect, the decentralized nature of the MCP. And the MCP itself is actually just, it's a concept. It is standards, procedures, specifications for how this is supposed to work. And the MCP community has also developed open source software that can be taken and used, open source, free of charge, very nice, and can be run by anyone who wishes to do so. So no vendor login or anything nasty like that here. Very open system. And I was, by the way, asked by the event organizers here to provide a PowerPoint presentation, so I thought I better provide some PowerPoint. So I thought I could, but that doesn't. There we go. So at least one PowerPoint here, and that is the governing body for the MCP, the MCP organization, which is inspired by the World Wide Web Consortium. So it's a consortium which has a small number of host members, which are all non-profit organizations, and then a number of regular members, which both are represented in the General Assembly that adopts these standards and procedures and specifications that is made for the MCP. And we have a number of working groups that do the actual work. And then outside we have the actual MCP providers that are endorsed by the MCP Consortium to live up to the specifications that is being made. and there's an advisory board where we right now have IALA, IHO, and CRM present. And there's now a drift towards we have been making the specifications ourselves, but we are now have a strategy to push these to other international organizations to give them more weight. We have already pushed some standards to other organizations like IALA, IHO, RTCM, and that is something that we're going to strengthen. And some of the work in the working groups will probably also be done more in other organizations. There's already a working group now being started in RTCM on this messaging service that I mentioned before. The status right now is that we are working on it. The different components are on different levels of maturity. The messaging service is still being specified and a prototype is being developed. The service registry is more mature. We have a mature test bed running that can be used by anyone. So that is something that can be used in test beds at this point. And the identity registry is the most mature one and the most important one. So there is actually now one, just to start somewhere, there's one actually operational MCP identity registry, which is operated by Saab and Wärtsilä and Kongsberg together, which has formed a consortium for doing that called Navalink. So that is the operational MCP identity registry at this stage. And I think I'm a little bit out of time and haven't even reached the digital incubator yet, so you'll have to invite me back. But actually, the digital incubator, very simple, because the digital incubator is all about implementing the technical services that I talked about before. Because the international organizations that are making the specifications for the technical services, they are just making the specifications. We need to implement them, we need to test them, we need to test them in lab trials and in sea trials, and provide feedback to the organizations that are making the specifications, so that the final specifications can actually be based something that has been tried out in reality. So this is an incubator for these technical services where we are developing them, of course using the MCP for authentication and service discoverability. So we are maturing those technical services so we can get the technical services specified and getting them implemented in reality and operationally, so we can have a digitalization of the maritime domain. Yes, thank you.
Very good, very interesting, Thomas. Thank you so much. When you talk about the MCP and the decentralization, what other, and you said that it would be nice to have one, but it is not possible. So should there be 2, 3? How does what about industry if it comes up and says we want to do this? How do we play the cooperation with other platforms?
Well, I mean, the industry is already in a part of the industry, and there's also other authorities that are implementing their own MCP instance. So there will be a mix of commercial. The Navalink one is actually, it's by commercial partners, but it's actually a non-profit instance. There will be commercial ones, there will be national ones, so there will be a mix here, and the purpose of the consortium is to ensure interoperability of these, because that is the important thing. And there's actually also a need to have some link between them, because what I said is that we need this service discoverability. Well, you can't have service discoverability if you have 100 different service registries that you need to, oh, is it here, is it here, is it here? So there we actually have a blockchain that each of the service registry providers is able to write to. So there's a global ledger that can, that facilitates the global service discoverability. So there's mechanisms to make this work as a whole, even though that it is decentralized.
Any questions from the audience? I'm sure well, you invited yourself back, so
yeah,
sorry,
I
you
did.
So there's a question. Sorry.
Hi, Ernest Fresset from ITS Norway.
Thank you.
Today, at least. And what is your relationship to IMO and the port organizations? Because you mentioned YAMA and ISO, which is a relatively limited part of the digital domain in the maritime sector.
Yeah. Not that much. We are mostly involved in IALA and IHO, and we are trying now to tip our toe into the World Meteorological Organization, because that is also, for instance, the navigational warnings that I mentioned, that is really not great to have that on its own, because there's a counterpart to that, which is weather warnings, to have a full maritime safety information service. So those are the areas that we're focused in now. But being here, I suppose I'm also tiptoeing into the ITS world.
You are.
Yes, one question. You mentioned that you are now in kind of early phase in this project. When you are ready, what is going to change? What kind of impact are we going to see in practice?
Well, I hope that we are going to see digital services actually being able to be exchanged with ships and shore. For instance, ships being able to go into a VTS system and not have to rely so much on VHF as we are doing now, but that actually a lot of information. We don't want to get rid of the VHF; it can still be there, but it would be a tremendous benefit to have a lot of that information being exchanged and have standard services that the ship is able to utilize. And much of it, we hope, also will be able to go into the ECDIS. I mean, these S100 product specifications, they are really, most of them, designed to be able to go into the ECDIS, and that is the vision that will be possible.
Yeah, the final question, or any more hands? Then we have the final question here.
Maybe but just a short one. Can you say a little bit more about how you are financed?
We're not. So this is really just a consortium where organizations come together and on a voluntary basis do the work. So that is how this is. There's been a number of projects, efficiency project, STM validation project, and there are still a few projects, but this is not, so the projects are sort of contributing to this. So there's some funding going that way around, but it's very much just on a voluntary basis, and then occasionally we are lucky enough to have some projects that can support it.
Thank you so much, and a warm applause for Thomas.
Hey, thank you.
Sorry. Our next presenter is Heidi Himmanen from Traficom. Please, the floor is yours. And an applause. Keep you awake.
Yes, thank you, Jenny, and good afternoon. So my name is Heidi Himmanen. I work for the Finnish Transport and Communications Agency Traficom, which was formed in 2019. And before that, I worked for the Finnish communications regulatory authorities. So they were merging the transport and the communications sectors into one agency. So my background is in telecommunications, and I have worked with wireless systems for communications and positioning and navigation. So with the spectrum management, spectrum supervision, and now for the last 5 years with 5G, promoting 5G for different industries, different verticals, and currently actually I work a lot with 6G mobile technology. I'm involved in the International Telecommunications Union work defining 6G, representing Finland there, and also co-chair of the 6G work with the Radio Spectrum Policy Group under the European Union. And as the new agency was formed, I have been drifting towards working also with transport, which is very exciting. And I think we're fortunate having transport and communication is in the same agency and this under the same ministry when it comes to discussing questions like ITS and transport digitalisation and automation. So yes, I have a lot of slides with a lot of information because I have a lot to tell you. So I hope you will get the slides, so you don't have to remember everything. But let's start from the hubs that was discussed in the previous presentations. With the uptake of 5G, there were not only, something was introduced that is called like private and local networks, mobile networks. And actually the ports were the first to utilize this in Finland. They were like the forerunners in utilizing building their own mobile networks. We have an ecosystem promoting 5G called 5G Momentum, which is an ecosystem led by Traficom. Everybody can join. We work in Finnish mostly, but we made these videos in English to demonstrate how 5G is or can be used in different sectors in Finland. And I would like to show you the video of the 5G in Finnish ports.
Business drivers take ports towards 5G private networks. To boost digitalization and secure critical functions, investments are made to develop productivity and agility by increasing automation. 5G enables the use of real-time AI analytics in the port area, including situational awareness of traffic flows and automated inventory of containers for operational optimization and cost savings. Through automation, ports will become significantly more flexible and increase the cost efficiency in handling large ships and a growing volume of shipping trade. Remote control of port cranes requires real-time video and the low latency enabled by 5G. The wireless communication technology enabled by 5G allows container terminal operators to roll out remote control and automation to port cranes in the container yard without running fiber or cable spools, with substantial savings in cost and time. 5G brings new possibilities and savings in maintenance. A 360-degree live camera transmits high-quality 8K resolution video, and experts can join the session remotely. Pilots work in difficult conditions. High-performance wireless communication will enable remote pilotage. In the future, the pilot can assist the captain from a remote control room. Remote pilotage is enabled in Finnish legislation. Digitalization brings competitive advantages for exporting industries. There is huge potential in 5G technology to improve the efficiency of the port area. The digital twin can visualize and share data of the port ecosystem to partners. Digitalization also helps reduce the ecological footprint of the port.
So I hope that you have a picture of how many different things are possible, and there are lots to come that we cannot still, I think, imagine. About the radio communications in port operations or wireless systems using radio spectrum, these are examples of those. So for the wireless broadband surveillance, situational awareness, remote operations, INT, and so on, we can have a commercial 4G, 5G services provided by the mobile network operators. But then we can have a private network in the port provided by the port or the port operator. And in many countries, you can already get your own spectrum license. Or then you can lease the spectrum from the operator. We can have wireless LAN networks also. For IoT, Internet of Things, collecting sensor data, for example, we can have separate networks for that, requiring typically low bit rates. And then not to forget the maritime safety service, so the maritime VHF, AIS, and other emergency transmitters and radars. And for navigation, we have the maritime navigation systems and the satellite systems, typically also with the terrestrial components to assist. Now, let me take you to the fairway. There was a Finnish research project called C4 Value Future Fairway. You can see you can find the link to the web page here in the slide if you wish to take a look, and especially the final seminar material might be very much of interest to you. This is an exercise, this is the result of an exercise that we did in that project. Me working with communication, I was asking the colleagues in the project, well, we don't actually know what you want to, what you want to use the communication systems for. So it's very difficult to imagine how they should develop. So we wanted to understand what are the elements of the fairway, and especially the future fairway. And they were defined. We had many workshops to find this set of 18 different elements, and then we actually defined the different contents of these elements, and I will show you a few of those. And these were all also put on an importance and challenge axis, as you can see. And surprise, surprise, the communication systems are the most challenging and most important, or on the importance axis on the high, and the challenge axis high. So number 3 here is the communication systems. And I will also give you a glimpse to number 2, electronic positioning finding aids. So those are the 2 most related to wireless communication. So what we did, we had this kind of this format to analyze the content of these different elements was provided by the University of Turku, who we work together with. And these analyses are made by my colleagues in Traficom and in the Finnish Transport Infrastructure Agency. So just to give you a glimpse, you will get the slides, so you don't have to remember everything, but the element of communication was actually divided into 3 different parts. So we have the dedicated maritime radio systems. These are like the traditional systems. As you see, if you look in the middle box, content and service, it means the different services using MF, HF and VHF maritime radio. We have different kind of emergency beacons and satellite-based, typically satellite-based. But in the future, we will have the VDES system. And we have also analyzed the readiness level, the partners, and so on, the customers. So I think maybe here, interesting to note with the readiness level is the lack of cybersecurity and how difficult it would be to put it on afterwards. So, for example, anybody could fake their identity in these systems. But they are very important, and when we develop future systems, also these dedicated maritime radio systems will be developed, but they are also very important for the resilience and the robustness of the total system. So if you lose some other communication channel, this should work. Okay, then we come to the mobile networks and satellite services. These are typically commercial services by commercial operators. Also, they could be private networks, as you saw in the port case. And why not having also like private dedicated networks in the fairway? That could be possible in the future. So the content today is, we have, if you look at the content and services, today we have Inmarsat with VSAT service for speech and data. We can have 2 to 4G commercial mobile networks in the fairway, maybe also some 5G, I think we have some. But for example, in Finland, the operators do not have any coverage obligations in the fairways. So they are there if the operators will build them. And then we have, of course, the public protection and disaster relief, like the authority radio network called Virve, based on Tetra technology. In the future, we will have the Iridium system, satellite system, already approved for the global maritime disaster safety system, distress and safety system. And then we would have the 4G, 5G networks built, they are built today on a market basis, maybe with some satellite components. A very interesting development in Finland is that we have this Virve 2, which is the radio communication system for authorities. It's actually built on the commercial networks on top of them. And I think they tried to do this in UK, but they didn't succeed so well. I think it's the first that I know of in the world that we have built on the commercial systems. I would maybe like to highlight that the Finnish mobile communication networks are really trusted, which this shows that they are really trusted, and many critical communication applications are planned to be built on those. Okay, and then a question mark is what is the future of the very fast developing satellite communication services. So then we have, well, you heard about the user service registry and the mobile connectivity platform in the previous presentation, so I won't take you through this. This is maybe should not be part of the communication element, but we didn't know where to put it else, so in square brackets or in brackets, but it's very important, and as you see, it's kind of empty. So the development is ongoing, and to understand who is in charge, who will develop, it will require a lot of projects, I think, still and a lot of cooperation to fill this up. And the last is from the element 3, the electronic positioning finding aids. So today we have like the maritime radars and the satellite navigation systems, and those are also heavily developing. So we have GPS, GLONASS, Galileo, and it's very interesting in the European Galileo system, the publicly regulated service, but also in which is like a closed system, but then also in the open service we have the navigation message authentication. So we will have a lot of more robustness and security in that. And also, not to forget the R mode, so very interesting developing things. It's a terrestrial component to support the satellite navigation, and projects ongoing, I think, in the Baltic Sea region to develop new infrastructure to support this R mode. Okay. So why is this so challenging to understand how to develop the communication services? We have identified like 4 steps to understand what the transport automation needs for communication services. And this applies to all modes. It's not like maritime specific at all. But how we could understand the future needs is to understand the need, first understand the need of one user. And to take some planned use cases and they are defined in the performance requirements and like the set of planned use cases that we know. For example, when we did this in the road transport, we have like the day 1 and day 1.5 services quite well defined already. So why? Who is using it and to what? Then we should scale this up to understand the needs then from the network side. So the scalability. We had one user. Then what if we have a lot of users? What does it mean from the network side? And then in the third step is actually to understand the KPIs and the measurement methods. If we discuss the need, the quality of service and the robustness that transport will need, we probably cannot use the same metrics and the same KPIs as for consumer mobile broadband. So if you just use the typical way to measure mobile for example, mobile networks today is to take it from the perspective of the consumer. There are more strict requirements for transport on how it should work. It should not lag, it should be real time, depending on the service, and so on. So maybe we should try to find some new measurement methods for how we can then verify the services in the fair way. And then the fourth part is how could the networks be developed cost efficiently. So if we don't have all the services that we need, the service level, the quality of service, the capacity, the reliability, the delay requirements for the future services, then how should we build the network to support all this? Because if we talk about the commercial networks, they are built on a market basis, so we cannot force the operators to build in the fair way. But we can find ways to cooperate and have maybe some public-private partnerships. Maybe we need some new regulation. There was actually a regulation made, there was a change in the law to build this Virve 2 system for the authorities. So maybe if we can show that in the future the need of the transport sector is very critical, we might do something similar. This is my own ideas, but maybe we should look at all the possibilities. Okay, so one last project I would just like to mention is just started. It's the 5G Advanced for Digitalisation of Maritime Operations, where I'm heavily involved in this. And it's financed by the Business Finland 6G Bridge program, so it's under the 6G financing. But very interesting project to establish like a comprehensive understanding of the maritime connectivity and the possibilities, and also looking on 5G and beyond 5G, and trying to also like set a roadmap for what is needed and how we could reach that. So thank you very much. That ends my presentation, and I'm open to questions.
Thank you so much, Heidi, for that. Any takers from the room before I go, or do I go first? And okay, let me. We only have like questions from this side. I want this side to be more activated. Sanna has asked a question, but maybe others can also activate themselves. That would be very nice. Trond?
Oh, thank you for an interesting presentation. I have a couple of questions, but maybe the main one is do you envision what kind of future it will be with 6G and AI and more satellites? Have you kind of a picture of that? I lack it completely, so I need help.
Yes, well, this is very visionary, of course, because we are just defining what 6G means, and we are defining now the terrestrial part of it, and there is a work in the European Satellite Agency also with 5G and 6G satellites. They are just like, if we think about satellite and terrestrial systems, they are just merging, and we don't know what the future will look like yet. I will hope for some researchers also to look into this and see of the different options. And yeah, AI. There are so many levels of AI. It's discussed so much. When in 6G we discussed mostly about how we could optimize the network with AI. But if you probably talk about the user from the perspective of the user of the fairway. In 6G we would have a new usage scenario called integrated connectivity and AI, and that should be supported by it should enable the future AI services and applications, whatever they are. It's difficult to imagine now. It would require edge computing. So having not the servers, not to take all the data to the cloud and then back, because we don't have time. Even if it's with the speed of light, there will be too much delay with all the processing. So we need to that's one very important thing, to take the computing to close to the user. But then thinking about AI, I think it's very important also to consider how AI is used to process all the data within the ship, and to optimize what you transmit, because we will have so much data in the future. So we should actually think about where we process it and what we transmit forward. So there's need for a lot of optimization. But yes, we need the computing closer so maybe close to the fairway actually in this case.
Any other questions to Heidi? If not,
maybe
yes?
Can I continue a little bit? Because I think it's also important to think about when we use the terrestrial communication system and when we use the satellite systems, and it should be smooth when in the maritime operations. So there's a lot to look into now, and currently the satellite service is we see it as it's very much more expensive, and it's slower, and it has a longer delay. So it's like complementary to the mobile. And of course, it depends on where you are, if you have the availability of the terrestrial mobile network. But in Finland, we have, in our archipelagos, we have quite good coverage actually, and it can be increased. We see currently that the satellite service will be bringing more robustness, and it's a complementary service. But in the future, let's see what happens. The problems with the satellite service in the north is also that typically the coverage area of the satellite services is not covering like the Nordics or Finland, Sweden, Norway. So let's see. It's more about the commercial side, how things will develop.
Enough. Alex, you get some exercise too. That's very good.
Thank you. It's a question about, I'm not a specialist in 5G, but as far as I can see, it's a very flexible specification. but not everything is implemented yet. And an interesting point with maritime communication is that it's typically few users in very sparse area. I mean, even if you look at Singapore, you have 2,000 ships spread over 20 square kilometers or something like that. It's very different from what we see in the cities, with its pico cells and stuff like that. And one question there is frequency allocation between maritime uses and kind of land-based uses, which are very different. Do you see any possibilities for reuse of frequencies in maritime domain with different types of modulations and stuff like that? Because that's one of the problems we have in the maritime. We don't have the frequency dedicated to maritime. We are.
Yeah.
So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, thanks. There were very many questions in that question. But, well, from discussing this, that we have the users are very sparsely distributed. Yes, then it's probably better to use a lower frequency to reach the users. I mean, 5G and 6G in the future will be able to use all the mobile spectrum that is dedicated to mobile networks in the future. I mean, we are now planning to close down 2G and 3G. There will be spectrum released from that. The lowest spectrum currently for mobile systems in Finland is 700 megahertz band, and that's actually used by 5G. So we have that you could have a good coverage with that. Of course, you cannot have the very high speeds, but it's all about planning the mobile network. It's about the optimization of you have a huge toolbox of all the spectrum bands that one operator has, and then 5G in itself is a toolbox of different tools. We typically draw it as a triangle. So we have the enhanced mobile broadband is in the one corner. Then we have the massive machine type communication, so IoT. And then in the one corner we have the ultra reliable low latency communication, so translated robotization, automation. And when the operators now build the networks, it's just like boosting 4G actually, because you build the enhanced mobile broadband. But if you want to use those other characteristics or possibilities with 5G, then you might need to tailor your own network and to build like a private network or a local network. And 6G will bring even more. It will be even a bigger toolbox with more options. So we have a lot of options to how to tailor the services based on the user needs in the future. And we don't think about this having their own spectrum. We don't think that, well, in Finland we don't think that we should like allocate spectrum for every single vertical, like their own spectrum, but actually to use the commercial networks that are there. So we are very reluctant to allocate spectrum to a specific vertical or field. And then, because, I mean, I don't think the Finnish Transport Infrastructure Agency would be so happy to build their own infrastructure, communication infrastructure still on that, if we have it's the state money, it's the taxpayers' money to build that, when we have the commercial networks and we can build these public-private partnerships. And it has been quite successful in Finland, so that's the way we are going at least. And they are very trusted, the networks. Thanks.
Excellent, Heidi. A warm applause. Thank you so much. Thank you, Heidi. We will take a short break of 20 minutes, so we'll be back here at 10:02, and then we'll dig into more of about the digitalization part, and I have 3 exciting presentations, so enjoy your break. Thank you. I really look forward to having many of you at the workshop tomorrow. It's more what we're going to do is, as I said in the beginning, hear more of you talking and introducing your ideas of how we can cooperate and how we can function together. We have had a lot of interesting talks about solutions and projects. And we're going to continue in the digitalisation area. We have 3 presentations. Then we have a short break, and then we have the final part of the talking more about the future, which is good, and then we have some networks and cocktails. I would like to introduce Olari Tammel from the Tallinn port. Welcome on the stage, and give him a warm applause.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Olari Tammel. Maybe the next slide, yes. My name is Olari Tammel. I have been working in Port of Tallinn for close to 10 years. In the meantime, I had one and a half year sabbatical in the healthcare industry, but right now I'm back in Port of Tallinn again, managing the SmartPort project. Next 2 slides are mandatory for Port of Tallinn presentations. We need to share what are the business fields actually of Port of Tallinn. We're not only a port. We deal with passengers, cargo. We have our own daughter company that has 2 shipping lines between Estonian main islands. We have actually 6 ships. 5 of them are passenger ferries and 1 is icebreaker. And what is really popular lately is the real estate part, because we are situated in the really city center of Tallinn, one of our terminals. Then it's quite a good investment to build something else than just parking spaces in the city center. One slide is gone. Somehow there was supposed to be a slide about ports. What are the terminals of Port of Tallinn? Our name suggests that we only operate in Tallinn, but we actually have 4 ports. We have 2 mainly cargo ports in Muuga and Paldiski, and 1 cruise port in Saaremaa, and then the main passenger port is the Old City Harbour in Tallinn. We also have, as I said, 2 shipping lines between Estonian islands that we operate. Those ports there or terminals we don't own, but we operate there. And also the SmartPort, the system we have there is operational there. Now, going to this, what is SmartPort? SmartPort for us so far has been a traffic management solution, meaning that all the traffic going in and out of our terminals is controlled by this solution, and it consists of also passenger traffic, meaning on-foot passengers. We manage those people too. We started with, we called it SmartPort 1.0. We took and wanted to automate the traffic management for car and passenger terminals. Then we did loading and discharge management, reporting and data analytics, and back office and admin. In that same time, we did the traffic management for foot passengers, and after that, what we call SmartPort 2.0 is the access control and management. You see here also 2 logos. Our main software partner during all these developments was Nortal and still is. The development is still ongoing, and our main hardware partner was Hansab, and they provided most of the hardware that we have. So going into more specifics, what we achieved or did at Old City Harbour. There are 2 terminals, A and D. At D terminal, Tallink uses mainly, and in A terminal, Viking Line and Eckerö Line operate. We started at A terminal, and the second terminal was D terminal. What we did is pre-gate to determine vehicle measurements, the weights and license plates, and also we take pictures. It's an area. Basically, we get booking data from the operators. We compare it to the data we get from the pre-gate, and then make decisions based on that. From the pre-gate, we then send the vehicles with LED displays. We have LED displays all over the port area, guiding the vehicles. So basically, when you enter the port and when you enter the vessel, you can handle the directions only looking at the screens. We have automatic check-in queue management. So from pre-gate, we direct vehicles to the shortest queue and to the right lane, basically. So if you have an automatic lane permit, we guide you to an automatic lane. If not, then we guide you to manual check-in. We have next automated and hardware-assisted manual check-in lanes, meaning that automatic lanes are only number plate recognition based. So there is no interaction with the person, but also at manual lanes, we have hardware that assists check-in staff to make better decisions. We have this marshalling or loading area management with lane fulfillment sensors, so basically guiding into the gathering area or marshalling area, however you call it, is automatic. When a lane fills up, the system knows that the lane is full and the next vehicle is guided to the next lane, so there is no person handling the guiding of vehicles on the actual area. And also we have these PDA, let's call them tablets, that staff can do every operation basically on the port area, check vehicles, operate hardware, show some things on screens, whatever they wish. What does this mean for the passengers? I put a collage of pictures. Basically, when you buy a ticket, let's say from Tallinn, you do a web check-in, you drive through, these are actual pictures from T-terminal. So you are in the first left-hand upper side. The vehicle drives through this pre-gate area, the vehicle is measured, weighed, and after that, on the right picture, you can see the vehicle is guided to a correct kiosk with the shortest queue, basically. If the lane where the vehicle was guided was an automatic lane, then on the bottom left side, you see the automatic lane, so there is no kiosk. The number plate is recognized. If the ticket is valid, the boom opens, and on the screen you will see the lane number of the gathering area. If the number plate recognition doesn't work for some reason, then you have a QR code reader that you still get in. And on the last picture, you see every lane has a large screen, so if you think you are lost, then from there you get confirmation that you are not. And all the loading is done with traffic lights, so basically stuff from the vessel come out, they have this tablet, they see what is going on the area, and the whole loading is done by the ship personnel. I talked about that we have a daughter company that operates two lines between Estonian islands. It's TS Laevad, it's abbreviation or short from Tallinna Sadam. Ships, PT ships is the English translation. What we did there is basically the same without the pre-gate, but as this is our own shipping line, then when you buy a ticket, that means you already have a check-in done. So what we had to develop there is our own ticketing system. We developed this from the ground up, basically. We integrated a cashier system. We have a lot of integrations with national registries. Estonia likes national registries like vehicle registries. So if you buy a ticket, you enter an Estonian vehicle number. We ask the national registry what is the size of the vehicle, and you don't have to think about what type of ticket to buy. You get that automatically. And what is special about this, or regular for Estonians, that you can arrive basically 1 minute before departure and you don't need to worry that you will get on. Basically, the number plate recognition recognizes the vehicle number, boom opens, and you can basically drive straight onto the ferry. The ferry trip to Saaremaa takes about 27 minutes, and the turnaround time is 8 minutes, so it works like clockwork. Yeah, some pictures and information about the software side that we developed. What is, I think, quite a good solution is that every terminal has the port management server, specific terminal-specific port management server, meaning that if the connection goes down with the main server, the port is still operational. The updates don't come. If you buy a ticket in the time that the connection is down, then that ticket will not update to the terminal, but all the historical data is there, and all the systems still work. I talked about PDA. Yeah, those pictures are from the PDA. What the staff do with it is load vehicles, check vehicles. You can change the allocation of lanes on the areas, meaning that on the departure in the morning, maybe you want cargo vehicles on the left side. In the evening, you want them on the right side, and you can do that beforehand, or you can do it during departure. So it's quite a good thing. And also you can control all the gates, traffic lights and displays. Basically, I can go with my mobile phone and open all the gates if I have the proper not rules, or if I have the possibility to do that. Rights, yes. Thank you. Then we explained that we have this check-in interface for ship operators, meaning that if you drive through the pre-gate, all the measurements are taken, they are compared to the booking data. That data, if the vehicle from the picture you saw was sent to lane number 7, then lane number 7, as soon as you drive through the pre-gate, sees that this vehicle is probably coming to your kiosk. So they can do some pre-work, meaning that the time at the manual check-in is also quicker than it used to be. And also we have this admin console where you can configure everything that is going on in the port. Some numbers, realized benefits. As you can imagine, the staff required for check-in and also the operations on the marshalling area decreased by 75%. If we take our own shipping lines, it used to be that there were during peak times 4 people in the check-ins. Right now it's 1, and also on the area there were multiple vehicle guiders, but right now it's 1 person. The area is well utilized. We added a nightly departure. One of our operators said that if we didn't have this system, we wouldn't have been able to depart at 6 o'clock because there would have been staffing issues. Yes, environmental impacts, meaning that the waiting time in terminal reduced thanks to that, that vehicles on our own lines can drive straight onto the ship. They don't have to wait in the terminal, and with idling vehicles. Yes. There are some numbers also here. You can see them from, I'm not going to go over every point, so you can see it later. We calculated the time spent, average time spent in a check-in before the system was 57 seconds per vehicle. In the automatic lane, it's maximum 2 seconds. And also, as I said, in the manual check-ins, thanks to this pre-work that the staff can do, the average time went down by 24 seconds. And what is, I don't know, unique or very good in the view of Port of Tallinn is that NPS score or Net Promoter Score, or how our clients like the service, was when we last time measured it was 73, which is very high. and it increased, and the main driver, I think, is that the system is so seamless, basically. Traffic management for foot passengers, we used to have so that we have multiple operators in our terminals. Every operator had their own passenger gates, basically, or speed gates. They had to buy their own hardware. We had to dedicate entries for every operator, but we thought of better solution that speed gates or gate entrance control is managed by the port, so meaning that they are universal. Yes, so if you come from Estonia to Finland, then these gates where you show your ticket are also operated by the SmartPort system. We also developed this easy to understand interface. If there is a problem, somebody doesn't get in for some reason, then the staff can see what was the actual problem. Now, when we finished with this SmartPort 1.0 that was directed to passengers, then we went to all the other gates into the terminals. We had, as I said, we have 4 main ports. We had 2 different systems operating staff gates and handling unit gates. So if there were vehicles that needed to go to multiple terminals, we had to enter the permits to 2 different systems. Also, we had this problem that if we wanted to add a gate, we were in a vendor lock situation, so we had to ask for one of the providers to give us a price, and we had to accept it if we wanted to have a new gate. So what we decided is we developed our own permit system, and all the terminals are operated under that. And the number plate recognition cameras that are situated in our ports only do number plate recognition. They send that data to our permit system, and our own permit system will decide to open the gate or not. You can see here also the checkpoints view that our security staff use, so it's a quite good feature. If there is a problem at the gate, they can from afar help the vehicle in. Maybe the number plate recognition wasn't correct. They can fix it and the vehicle will get in. Yes, here is the list what we did at Muuga and Paldiski Harbor. Again, a pre-gate. So from there, the pre-gate only shows the driver, do they have a permit or not. So if they don't, we advise them to go to a parking spot, not try to get in. All the gates are controlled by the SmartPort system, and as I already said, easy to change hardware. We are actually in the process of changing all the number plate recognition cameras ourselves. We don't have to get a service provider for that. What is the future? We are putting up screens. We want to, as a Port of Muuga is a large area, there are multiple operators there. From the gates, we want to start guiding also the cargo or terminal operators' vehicles to correct gates so they don't get lost on our area. And also, as there are some Ro-Ro ships from Muuga to Vuosaari, we want to add some functionality that we have in Old City Harbor to Muuga also. The latest thing that we did is a permit application system. So we have some paid permits so we have an application system for that also. There are some other smart systems that we have in our port. We have a digital twin. All the new buildings are covered with the BIM model. We have auto mooring, shore power, and we are utilizing IoT solutions. We have some air quality and oil pollution monitoring. CO2 calculations are almost automatic. And in our marina, we have an autonomous vessel. And the final slide for me is the future. We want to raise the level of automation. Right now, the automation lane utilization is around 10-20% in the Old City Harbor. We are working with the operators to get that to the levels that we have for our own shipping line. We are piloting passenger counting cameras in D-terminal next month and month after that. So we want to count the passengers in the vehicles also. Just-in-time cargo vehicles to terminals, as we have a city ring road parking area that we want to think how to utilize. We have a cruise terminal, so we want to automate the visitor and terminal visitor and passenger movement there. And a lot of data exchange automation is something that we are starting to look into. And working on the Smart Port 4.0 concept, what actually means, what will the Smart Port for Port of Tallinn actually be in the future.
If you go back one more slide. Very
Yes.
interesting. Thank you so much. You're doing a lot. Trond said in the first comment, he said if you visited one port, you only visited one port. And there's no, how do you take this and cooperate with other ports to showcase what you've done?
We have done that. We have tried.
So all ports are the same? No.
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 In Port of Tallinn, yes. If you mean, if you want to, for every operator, meaning Viking, Eckerö, and Tallink, when you are coming to Finland, all ports are the same on our side. But on the other side, it's a different thing.
So how can others learn from what you've done?
Come and see.
Okay. So we have an invitation, right?
Of course,
Okay, very
everybody is
good.
invited.
So are there any questions to... Yes, excellent, the man in the back.
Okay, first of all, thank you for a very interesting presentation. Erik Kanerva is my name, and the company I present is Kempower in the DC fast charging industry. And my question would actually be, which role electromobility will play in your harbor activities? Talking about private cars, lorries, trucks, and machinery in the harbor.
Excuse me, what role? I didn't get
Electromobility.
Electromobility.
Yeah.
Right now, if the vehicle has a number, then the traffic management will work the same as it does right now. We haven't had this differences between, we don't have differences between electricity vehicles or fuel vehicles at the moment. But what we are thinking about is maybe, as there are already cameras that can recognize the make and model of vehicles, so we can recognize which are the electricity vehicles, so maybe there can be some cheaper payment model for the operators or something like that. That has been discussed, but nothing certain at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think we have an invitation to maybe do the host the next workshop in Tallinn Port.
Yes.
Thank you. Our next presenter is Sanna Sonninen from Siili Solution. And welcome to the stage, please. And a warm applause.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sanna Sonninen, and I come from Siili Solutions. Siili has established a domain that is focusing on maritime digital solutions, and I'm heading that unit. And today I will talk about what the data ecosystems mean in the maritime industry. Firstly, so why do we even need the data ecosystems? So a couple of introduction slides related to that. Now, I want you to imagine a soccer team, perfectly fit, great players, but at the same time, blind and not aware of each other, not passing to each other, and not collaborating. But soccer is a team sport. You can't excel without a collaboration. And the same applies with maritime industry, and especially in ports. Not collaborating causes many types of issues, like delays, rushing to a port, waiting, more waiting, manual checking up, and excess communication. And it easily ends up in sub-optimizing smaller pieces of the process. But it doesn't have to be that way. And when people realize this, it opens up a whole new world. The whole logistic chain and its multiple business processes and organizations are all tightly linked to each other. And for that reason, maritime specifically is naturally an industry which benefits greatly from data sharing and data collaboration. As an example, if you compare industrial factory with a port, you can see the difference how the value is produced. In traditional factory, the value chain of the key business processes are produced by one single organization, versus at port, multiple organizations are involved to create even the most essence of the value chain. And now let's have even a deeper view what this value creation means in practice with a short animation. So I will tell you a story how the industry and its organizations are deeply connected and how they could form a data ecosystem together. I have a story here. So it's essential that data is shared with relevant stakeholders throughout the chain of events. The receiving port and the ship owner are informed of the cargo volumes and the arrival time. To optimize vessel and feed utilization, ship operators plan the best vessel cargo fit combination. Ports, vessel, and all the port stakeholders are interacting prior to the departure and cargo loading. The idea of the virtual arrival system is to reduce vessels' speed to meet the revised arrival time if it's known that the berth will not be free on arrival. By slowing down and avoiding waiting and congestion, the shipping company can reduce fuel consumption and emission by at least 20%. Port, as such, is like an ecosystem within an ecosystem. Operators, agents, authorities, pilots, and towards are part of the shared value chain. Stakeholders will all benefit from data sharing with better operative excellence at each stage of the value chain. Then a couple of business use cases to concretize even further. Firstly, I want to talk about NEMO. NEMO will be a national single window for maritime traffic in Finland. And the service will meet all the EU regulations, which is intended to harmonize the data of the port calls at the member states. In addition to these mandatory regulative parts, we are also building a shared data platform for the whole maritime ecosystem. And the public data platform is neutral, but it can be used also as basis for value-added commercial services. It provides different kind of interfaces for stakeholders. For example, ports and operators can use their own existing systems, but also benefit from the common platform. And here you can see, thank you for my great team. It's 10 meters long, so let's see if we have space. You can see the blueprint of the vision concept for NEMO that we have created together with the dozens of the stakeholders in the industry. It represents the whole value chain throughout describing from the starting the purchase of the goods, creating the contracts between the buyer and the seller in global economy, and all the way through the whole logistic chain on land and on sea, operations at port, and continuing until the buyer gets what they have ordered. We have described the processes, actions of different stakeholders, roles and responsibilities, and most importantly, what kind of data is flowing through the processes and which stakeholders are providing the data and which stakeholders are using the data in which part of the process. Thank you. There's still 2 more to come. So one of the examples is also dynamic timeline in port visits, which is a value-added service on top of these type of data platforms. It offers a dynamic and up-to-date view of the past and estimated future events in the port visits. As a benefit, it provides shared visibility and situation awareness for all the stakeholders using it, and also creating better operative excellence for the whole value chain and for the individual organizations included in it. And as a third example, virtual port arrival. So with virtual port arrival, vessel books the best slot beforehand from the digital system, and this means that they no longer need to rush full speed into the ports to get their slot. Instead, they can slow down and save the bunker oil and also reduce the emissions like CO2. And this is, of course, beneficial naturally from the shipping company perspective, but also helps ports with optimized planning and operations through the vessel arrival. And this is a great business case, both from the cost savings and environment perspective. The savings are quite spectacular. You can reduce CO2 emissions by 20%, and correspondingly save 20% for the bunker oil. And in Finland, ESL and Neste have very successfully piloted this, and the numbers are coming from their experience. At Siili Maritime, we believe that data collaboration and information exchange within a larger maritime ecosystems is going to be the future of the industry. And next, we would like to hear what you think about the future of the maritime. So in which way you think that data ecosystems will most likely develop in the next 15 to 20 years? So we are not saying it's going to happen in 2 years, but we can think a bit further, because if that's the direction, we need to be already looking into our investments in the next 5 to 10 years. So we have 3 scenarios. So we would like to hear what you think is the most plausible one. So please scan, or some of you are already scanning the QR code, and make a vote. Now you can make a competition when you see the results. Yes. So it looks like the first one is getting the most, or now it's changing. Yes. Yeah, okay. So it seems that the yellow one with the slide, let's see if it will change. But at the moment, the yellow one is there will be joint ventures managing data sharing and data collaboration between different ports. And the green one is digital twin will represent real-time situation of EU ports and maritime logistics. And the blue one, international logistic chains are predictable and major incidents are avoided with forecasting models. it seems like joint ventures is going to be the future of the ports. So very much thank you having me here. Any questions? I'm happy to answer.
That's how you call activating a crowd. We were waiting them to start singing as well. That would have been quite nice. Okay, good. Any questions about people in the room about the results? Because I think that's quite interesting. When you talk about joint venture, where is Siili in Siili Solutions in the joint venture part? If you look at the results, is this, by the way, the result? Are they surprising, or were they as expected?
Not necessarily. I definitely see, if you look at how the standardization is moving at the moment, and if you look at like even the maritime single window as the basis for doing the authority port calls, if that's where the EU is going, and now even it's kind of the IMO's kind of standardization, then I definitely see that the collaboration between ports is going to be a very important. And if there's like big ports that are looking for making great benefits for creating better operative excellence or better collaboration, I think this could be in a very long perspective a direction to go forward.
I will give the word to Jon Leon, but where is Siili in the picture?
Well, we see as ourselves being kind of like the some type of solution maker and also a change management consultancy house here, that we can kind of help together with all the main actors in the maritime industry to kind of create this type of future and pilot and research and make experimentations towards this type of direction.
So again, an invitation to an
Absolutely.
activity on a project.
Absolutely.
I like this. This is going the right way. Jon Leon, you had a question.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. I have experience from IMO, and I have experience from the high-level steering group in EU that deals with the directives, and we have directives 2002/59, then we have the single window directive 2010/65, then we have 2018 the maritime single window environment, and then we have the 2019/1239 that you refer to, and that's only in Europe, and we have an international aspect there. So in IMO there is a lot of flag states with a large voyage, for instance, the Marshall Islands. Do anybody know how many cargoes that go to Marshall Islands? It takes a long process in IMO to make it international. Do you think this is achievable in Europe or in a global scale?
Yeah, like I said, we put a purposefully very visionary and maybe even a little bit playful scenarios here with a very long distance, talking about 15 to 20 years. But I do see that at least in EU, which is a little bit more harmonized kind of economy field, because there's also a lot of push from the legislation towards this type of unified data collaboration in many levels, and EU's funding a lot these type of actions that require consortiums and multinational groups to be formed. So I do see that EU is definitely going to be one of the forerunners in this area when it comes to the data collaboration.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sanna. Just a final question: is this downloadable, or do we have to?
Yes, we have a PDF of that in English, and we can share that.
Excellent. That will be shared. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Any barrier that these all scenarios would happen at the same time?
Of course not. It's up to us.
Good. Thank you. I love the short question there, Marco. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. Jon Leon, you will get to continue your talk. So I will welcome you on the stage and give a warm applause to Jon Len.
Thank you. Thank you. My question was actually leading to my presentation also, and some of my final statement also. But I will, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. I hope you don't fall to sleep before I'm finished, because I'm Norwegian. And if you fall to sleep, my presentation is full of text, and I don't going to read the text. I'm going to speak open and frankly. But you will not see the movie that I have during my presentation, and that's a good movie. The Coastal Administration, we are a governmental agency, that's all I have to say, because our vision is to have to make our coast and waters the safest and cleanest in the world. And the reason is, somebody during the lunch say, you have deep pockets in Norway. It's not a problem to lose a frigate. Okay. But for a common Norwegian, we probably have not so deep pockets that the rest of you. And I can imagine if you are Danish for the moment and go to Norway for vacation, you probably will be surprised over the prices in Norway, because the Danish krone is very strong and the Norwegian currency is very weak for the moment. And we don't see so much of this. But it's two sides of the cone. Yes, we have oil, but we also have a fishing industry, a maritime industry that is dependent on the clean ocean. We have tourists that goes to Norway, and we need that business. That is what we are going to live for a long time. And if we are out of business and don't succeed to have clean waters, then it doesn't matter how much deep pocket the government have in the future. How many of you like fish, will like to eat fish that you know have been polluted? How many? No, because there's nobody from France here. There was one Frenchman, he said marinated fish. My department that I'm heading in the Coastal Administration have the pilot management, the vessel traffic service, message and report service, like SafeSeaNet and Single Window in Norway, e-navigation, Maritime ITS, we explained the connection there, and we have also the autonomous systems that is going to be developed. And we work closely with research and development in ITS and e-navigation. So what about the future? We think that, yes, there will be a digitalisation process. Yes, there will be a implementation of e-navigation solutions. There will be VDS, 5G, 6G, 7, whatever. And there will be Maritime ITS. More user-friendly solutions will be there. Maritime safety will still be there. But we have to be more efficient in ports. And we work on that in Europe, and I will come back to that a little bit. It will be more enhanced ship reporting, sustainability, not surprisingly, more artificial intelligence and big data solutions. All those will lead to more autonomous systems that will support humans. But we are not there in the maritime industry. They call it in e-navigation. Thomas, when did we start? 2006? And we could prove scientifically that it will be cost beneficial by doing a facility study in IMO. That's the process they do in IMO. But it's also easy to argue against it when you come from Marshall Islands or Liberia or whatever. Europe, United States, Canada, Singapore, and those countries go ahead and want more of it. But we are somewhere between, because it's still carriage requirements like this on the bridge. There is a minimum keyboard display. You can't expect that every vessel that comes to Finland, Norway, Sweden, Denmark do have a symbol on the ECDIS. in the front of the bridge. If a Chinese vessel come into your water, do some damage because you have only sent it out on the AIS, they can say, we have a bridge equipped in accordance with the IMO regulations. And that's a minimum key display somewhere hidden in the back of the bridge. Okay, the background for what we did in Norway, we took the solutions that is here, e-navigation, and we recognized that ITS is the political correct terminology. The politicians understand ITS terminology because road is so huge. So we start to make use of Maritime ITS and include the e-navigation, because e-navigation is more limited than the Maritime ITS. E-navigation is the response from IMO to go from analog to digital transmission, based on the facts that over 65% of the accidents is related to human error. So we did that. We based ourselves on the documents from IMO, and we went out to the users, the industry. We went into several projects in EU and Norway. We used the DNV-GL to look at the cost benefit, and it comes out it will be very beneficial for the society to actually set up this set of tailor-made services along the Norwegian coast. Yeah, it's one. I am on the wrong slide here when I look here. Okay, but anyway, this is the results, and we end up hierarchically with reference route on the top. We made a digital process for all the routes along the Norwegian coast, and the Norwegian coast is how do you discover a shrimp in the water between Norway and Denmark? If it's Norwegian shrimps, I'm a hammer. Anyway, just to say that Norway is the second largest coastline in the world, and we have made digital roads north and south, in and out of fjords. And we will connect the other digital information along that route. So the user will have information that is necessary for the safety of navigation when he needs it, and at the right time, and in a user-friendly way. And he's also able to choose based on his operation. So it looks like this. And you can see that the portfolio is over to the left here, and that will be further developed. Another part is this single window concept, ship reporting, that we share that information digitally, because then you can reduce the VHF use. You can automatically request for VTS clearance and get information along the way or the route, the road you are following. You can plan the voyage, and you can use it when you are in the water. And Primar, who is a part of the hydrographic office under the Chart Authority in Norway, have already enriched their chart cells with these digital routes, and we cooperate very closely with them to actually provide digital sailing directions in the future. So, now it's the movie. Let's see what's happened. Here is a movie who explains how we think the future will look like.
Norway has the world's second longest coastline. It's not just long, it also poses many challenges. That's why it's especially important for us at the Norwegian Coastal Administration to be at the forefront of the development of new technology, which can help make our coast even safer. And a safer coast also means a cleaner coast. That's what we work towards every day. By sharing our knowledge with navigators, our goal is to reduce navigation errors, making our coast safer for those who sail here. We now offer an accessible digital service that provides navigators with safe and efficient routes along the entire Norwegian coast. A new navigation standard for route exchange has opened up completely new possibilities.
We have developed the solution routeinfo.no, where you'll find reference routes for navigation along our entire coastline.
Important information related to the reference routes is made available in a simpler and smarter way. The digital sailing routes are quality assured and recommended by our marine pilots, VTS operators, pilot exemption certificate unit and aids to navigation service. Reference routes for navigation and routeinfo.no are just the beginning of future tools for navigation. The route service has huge potential for further development and will pave the way for similar solutions in other countries. The reference routes and route information from the Norwegian Coastal Administration will also be available through other digital navigation services. In the future, services will be able to display weather and wave data, key and fairway information, as well as bunkering and charging stations directly connected to quality-assured sailing routes.
So we add that information along the route, and why shouldn't mariner in the future have a opportunity to what we have in Google, Street View. You can go into Street View. Why shouldn't we go into Sea View, preparing a navigation process in difficult waters? And then you can say, yes, it looks like that. Okay, there is the lighthouse. There is the mooring area. There is the pilot. Okay. So we will add that information to a portfolio of services that is tailor-made along our Norwegian coast. So, 15 years. Sustainability and environmental friendly solutions will be something that we have to work on. There will be more digitalisation, but keep in mind, it's like a train. Those countries, for instance, Marshall Island again, because it's very difficult to find them, but they are a large flag state, will be probably on the last wagon. Europe, United States, probably, hopefully, Canada, Singapore, and those countries will be in the front. Artificial intelligence will first of all support humans. Don't mix artificial, for instance, autonomous vessels with unmanned vessels. There will be a long, long way before that can be equal. Yeah, and there will be new concepts. So is this possible when the previous speakers talk about the digitalization and the port part? We know that nothing ends up in port. Everything goes from port to IKEA, for instance. Frustrating flat package that you have to put together by yourself. It's not in the port. You pick it up in IKEA. But it comes by container often. So you have to have a multimodal concept with common language, common specification, common standards. And I will say that this meeting is important. ITS play an important role because it's not possible. And my question in previous speech was meant to highlight that if we don't do anything in the Nordic countries, in Europe, we have the policy, we have the opportunity, but if we don't do anything, the rest of the world will not follow. We have to show that this is workable. Otherwise, it will take 15, 20, 30 years in IMO. So we have to go in front in Europe. And it looks like the political climate is there. Thank you.
Don't go. Jan-Lena, thank you so much. You said if we don't do it, the IMO, International Maritime Organization, will not. So you mean that we have the keys in our hand to actually do something here that then they will look to us and adapt, change, organize?
I can say a lot. Put a coin on me. If you look, this is my view. If you look at the IMO, how they work, if you have an accident, it goes very rapidly. For instance, you have the 9/11, you have LRIT, very fast. You have Titanic, you have lifeboats for every passenger in 2 weeks, both sides of the Atlantic. But if you do it scientifically, you have interest organizations filled up in that audience that can interrupt the process. If you look at the aviation industry, you don't have the CEO for Ryanair around the table when you discuss safety in the aviation industry, do you? But when it comes to maritime safety, everybody, observers in IMO, they are very loudly IMO. And Boeing, for some years ago, they took the safety culture and compare it in maritime and compare it with the aviation industry. And they say, if we have the safety culture in the air, like we have on sea, we will have 1.5 plane went down every day. So that's the different how we work. So it takes long time in IMO. I know it's controversial what I'm saying, but it's very hard to actually get through something that we have worked on for 15 years. We have followed the FSA methodology and proved that this is beneficial for everybody, for the society, but still we have a long way to go. And that's why Europe have to probably, because every ship owner, or most of them, want to go to European ports. There is where the business is. So if we go forward and say this is something that we want to achieve, this is regulation that we have in Europe, then it will be something that every ship owner who want to go to Europe implementing. Otherwise they can go to Marshall Islands and doing business. There is no business at Marshall Islands.
I do have a question. I don't know how sensible this is, but when you show the video, if that would have been implemented already now, would the fregatte with Helge Ingestad accident been avoided?
It's not controversial. We have these recommended routes. So legally we don't say you should follow it, but it's recommended. And we see that more and more mariners use that. When it comes to a Navy vessel with stealth function, no AIS transmission, exercising in an area, there is so many factors that is involved that the answer is probably no when I go back in my head and see all those factors that was involved in that accident. But there is probably several other accidents that could be avoided. And we will, instead of looking at remote pilotage, like we do in Finland, we have told the government that we will look into how we can calibrate some of the vessels and adjust the legislation for when to take pilot and when to not take pilot by follow the vessel using artificial intelligence to actually discover the small deviations that is not normal. As long as they follow the route, small vessels in long Norwegian fjords, the largest risk is to fall in sleep actually.
Question, Thomas, the microphone.
Thank you. Not a question, just a comment. So back in the day with e-navigation, when we were discussing the capital E versus the lowercase e, there was also a lot of discussion about user-driven or technology-driven e-navigation. But in fact, it is, as you say, it was, in the IMO context, it's disaster-driven.
You want to comment on that, or it was just a no?
No, we know both the history.
We agree. Olli?
How could we speed up some of the process in authority standard development? I think the situation is in many cases such that there's a tanker company or container company and a port which are streamlined in a second accuracy. And immediately you have a customs officer who wants to stamp in a paper, which actually hinders the whole process to be optimized. And I think sometimes we try to do too much at the same time. We could do smaller parts that actually could ease up the business of the business owners and not having the authority in the middle as the hindering element. As you know, in the IMO, everything takes maritime fast, so kind of a quarter of the century or 10 years. So the business is dying and emerge in that time.
I'm not sure I'm answering very good on that, but from my point of view, it's the development and the cooperation we can do, show the way. We have the trust between each other. We have the environment. We have the glue. We don't utilize it enough, but if we can show the way and we can give input to European policy and then show the way, I think we have to, I don't say ignore, but use the power we have in the common ship to actually speed up the process. But we have to really prove that this is achievable.
Comment? Or
yes, I also think that we've been talking earlier about IALA and IHO, which are other international organizations where it is much easier to get things through than IMO, because it is not the environment that Jon Leon was describing with the interest organizations. So I think getting solutions through there that can demonstrate what can actually be done and as global harmonized solutions, that would impact how things are done also eventually in IMO, I think, I hope.
I see none of you want to comment that, but can we take that tomorrow in the workshop? Okay, very good, because we're going to continue also one of these discussions tomorrow in the workshop, so it's a very important one, and you get to say yours then. Thank you so much, Jon Leon. We will have a short break, coffee break. We will have 2 more interesting presentations about AIS and also digitalisation of pilots. And then we will wrap up and have some cocktails and networking after that. So have a short break, 1:15, we'll meet here. Thank you. We have had many important and good presentations, and we will still continue with the 2 final ones, and then we'll do a conclusion from our side. I will ask, there you go, that's the next slide. I will ask our one and only Swede, we had 1 Dane, 1 Swede, to come to the stage, and you will talk about AIS a little bit, and the floor is yours. Please welcome Peter.
Yes, I'm going to talk about AIS, but more specific, next generation AIS. I'm working for Saab in Sweden, and a division or a small part called Transpondertech. Saab is a big company. This is some of our products. We are 20,000 people. And actually, I'm not the only Swede here. We have my colleague, Niklas, is here also. He is half Swede, half Finnish. So 1.5 Swedish guy is here. Yeah. So in the majority of these products you can see here, you have Saab Transpondertech products, the radio products here. That is the global eye up in the right there, for example. And Niklas, your remote tower is also a picture here. The remote tower is on the left here. But Saab Transpondertech, we have been in this AIS business for many years. We started in 1995. 25 years of continuous development of AIS. We have 25,000 units on board merchant vessels. Now we are starting the endeavor for AIS 2.0 or VIDAS is the same. But when did it start actually? It was in Helsinki, 1999.
Come closer to the microphone, please.
It was in a Jala meeting here in Helsinki. And on the left you have a Swede, two Swedes, and then you have Mats Koivisto from Navilectro, a young Mats Koivisto. Then you have Rolf Bäckström in the middle there, you can see with the beer. He's also from Finland. The rest is international guys coming from Finland, United States, and so on. Here you can say that was the seed of VIDAS. They develop here in this meeting the application-specific messages for VIDAS, for AIS, and that has later become VIDAS. This was 1999. It is the Stonehenge of digitalization, yes. But now we have some limitations in AIS. We don't go into details here, but you can read it. All this together is that AIS is not a sustainable platform for data communication and e-navigation in the future. We have to have something new. This is a sketch. All these green dots all over the world. It is tracks from 110,000 merchant vessels. The data is coming from a company in the United States that we cooperate with, Orbcom. So every little ship has made a little green dot here. So you can see the global tracks. And if you look carefully, you have some red dots in China, outside Portugal, Malacca Strait, Solent. That is area where AIS is not working properly with these ASMs. So we have to have a new system. And here is the solution. We call it VIDAS. That is next generation AIS. Standardization is ongoing. We are working with this since roughly 2012, 10 years. We are increasing the capacity and a lot of new applications. We should not go into technical details here, but you can see we have shipborne units, VIDAS shipborne, you have VIDAS base stations, and the new one is you have VIDAS satellites. VIDAS LEO stands for Low Earth Orbit Satellites. So a couple of maybe 200-300 satellites will be up, and they will be big like 3-4 decimeters big. 4 years ago on the World Radio Conference, we got all these frequencies for VIDAS. We are talking about the maritime VHF band here. We're talking about frequencies that before was used for analog voice. So all these new 14 frequencies, we have got them, so they're going to be used now for VDES instead of analog voice. If you're sketching this figure, you can see here you have 2 red channels, that is AIS, and the others are new for VDES. So we get much more frequency. That means that we can send and receive much more data, roughly 32 times more data. AIS has been under standardization now for 25 years. So we are up to the 6th revision of AIS on the IALA and IMO level. Now we're starting the process of VDES. And AIS will be a part of VDES. So we will be 100% backward compatible. So when we're saying VDES, we're also saying AIS. So all these 110,000 vessels out there using professional AIS, they will benefit from VDES in the future. Is this just paper products? No. Saab started the development of VDES roughly 5 years ago, and now we have products, and we have the base station is AIS and VDES, and we have a ship-on unit that is typed approved for AIS, so you can put it on a SOLAS vessel, but we cannot type approved VDES yet. Then we have a space in orbit demo for VDES, and our new navigation system is also adapted to VDES. For you that is not familiar with AIS, this is a Wärtsilä bridge. It's a ship called Spectrum of the Sea, very big ship. And if you look carefully in the middle, in the conning, where you're steering the ship is the conning position, then you have a little display that Leon called a minimum keyboard and display. This is what is required, and you need to have it in conning. I know that a lot of people put it in the back bridge, but it should be in the conning. AIS and VDES it's not complicated, but it has a lot of interfaces. So it's like a spider on the bridge. So the new AIS VDES transponder, it is AIS. It's called AIS Class A because it's professional. And then it is prepared for VDES. All these channels we were talking about before, it is prepared for. And we have other new technologies as well, multi-GNSS, dual Ethernet. Dual Ethernet is for redundancy on board, so you can have the redundancy on the bridge. When we talk outside here, I get the questions about what's happening in the standardization. And this is a very complicated picture here about standardization. But on the top level, we're talking about what they are doing on IMO level, and specifically at IMO MSC, who takes the decision. On the bottom of this picture is what Saab is doing with the products. And in the middle, you have all these standardization bodies, ITU, ISE, and IALA. And what we are seeing, the best prediction is that in 2026, in the right of the right upper, we're going to be enter into force into SOLAS with VDES, replacing or an addendum to AIS. SOLAS is you can call it the Bible. It started with Titanic more than 100 years ago with the life rafts. Today, this is a Bible. You have to check if you're going to build the ship. You need to have an AIS. Hopefully, it's going to stand VDES there in 2026. Hopefully. Little about VDES itself and our products. What we are an industry. We need to earn money every month. So when we introducing our VDES unit, we know we cannot sell it as a VDES until 3 years. So we sell it as a type-approved AIS system. And customers around the world that wants to test VDES can buy a license and putting new software into our products to test VDES and doing their own test beds. I coming to that what you can do with it, but that will come later. I was just saying that cybersecurity will be extremely important on SOLAS vessels in the future. AIS has a major drawback. AIS is very simple to emulate and send out bogus data. With VDES, we will have authentication of data on a much higher level. But that is not enough. In an VDES and an AIS system, you have 3 vulnerable interfaces. In an AIS, you have a GNSS receiver, you have the data link itself, and you have IP connections to the rest of the bridge. And all these 3 interfaces has to be secured in some way. I just take, you can read this, but I can give you an example here. Somebody talks about Galileo PRS here on I didn't know who talked about it. PRS is military and for civil security reasons, you need to have cryptographic technology. But what we are doing now, we're doing what we call the OSNMA interface with Galileo. So Galileo will have anti-spoofing from the civil side also. Civil means that you don't need all these crypto devices, you can do it on the civil side. We talk about the component of VDES that is maybe most exciting, because that is a huge benefit because you have satellites. So Saab, Orbcom, and the Scottish company called ASC Clyde Space, we got money from Swedish Transport Agency to develop and launch an in-orbit demonstration with the satellite. We will send up this later this year. And this is just a small sketch what type of communication will be with the shipborne station, the base stations, and the satellite. The numbers here, the link IDs, that is the core of the system. You're talking with advanced waveforms here. These link IDs are different types of waveforms that takes man years to develop. And in order to be cost effective with the space unit, we took our shipborne unit and shrink it in size to call the CubeSat form factor. We have radiation compliant memory circuits, done some vacuum testing and ionospheric testing. And the results is that we're going to send this up with the Falcon 9, Elon Musk's machine. It's called the Transporter 9 mission. It's in November or December this year. And it's going to be flying beginning next year. We can skip, this is the interfaces here. We can skip the technology here. You can read it. Let's go to application. A lot of people ask me, what could you do with VDES? We have a NIALA specification where we're putting in the majority of the applications of VDES that we can know about. And here is just a list of what type of applications we think of. Jan, you were saying route exchange. I agreed on that. That will be an important application for VDES. But also for mass ships, they can use VDES. Myself think of ship reporting also. So we have a lot of applications that the user, this group here, has to start to use. And Saab is offering test beds. We can supply project with hardware, and you can use your own application and test the system. A year ago, we started what we call the VDES Alliance. It's a year, inauguration was in August last year, but we started earlier. And being a member of VDES Alliance is a natural step for companies or authorities to learn more about VDES and also do interoperability tests. It's very inexpensive to be a member of it. If you want to be an observer member, if you're an authority, €750 per year. If you want to be a contributor member, it's €1,500. In summary, you can see here in this picture, you see a satellite. It's going to be more than one satellite. It's going to be 100 satellites. And it's going to, not all satellites come from Saab. It will be from Kongsberg. It will be from Stanola. It will be from South Africa. It will be from many countries. It's not just one company building the satellites. It will be a lot of different companies. Then you can see what type of performance do we have. The highest speed of VDES is 300 kilobits per second. That can be ship to ship in archipelago. Satellite to a ship, 100 kilobits per second. This is nothing compared to Elon Musk gigabit per second or VSAT. But the difference is that all ships around the world will have this. This is not just one company that is earning money here. It's a ensemble of maybe 100 companies that's building this together. I will skip a couple of pictures here and go to what we are doing now. We are connecting, this is my last picture. We are connecting inertial navigation system and what's called heading DGNSS. Heading DGNSS means that you have two GNSS antennas and can get heading. And building a navigation system that is quite competent. We have a centimeter accuracy in position and speed. And you can see the heading accuracy is just a fraction of a degree. And rate of turn accuracy is so good that you can, even an oil tanker, we can see the slightest movement of an oil tanker. And then we can navigate for a couple of minutes without GNSS. So this is what we are doing now. And if you're looking carefully to this picture, you can see we connected to the VDES system. And the VDES system itself can get the corrections, the network RTK, GNSS corrections via the VDES base stations. Yeah, it was technical, but this is the future, I think. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We like technical, right? No, don't go. Stay. The red dots of the first picture you showed, are they because they switched off the AIS? Or?
No. What's happening is that now I have to be technical here. It's called garbling. This is dots from 110,000 ships. Orbcom has 15 satellites. In total, it's 200 AIS satellites up there from different vendors, but Orbcom has 15. So they're collecting all this. But in some areas, they're not collecting so good. It's going to be garbling, because you can have one transponder outside Norway and one transponder outside Denmark that is sending in the same slot. They don't know each other. When that signal is coming up to the satellites, it's going to be garbling. And garbling is in these areas here.
But is it correct that you could turn off the AIS?
Of course they can.
But yes, but that's not the red dots.
That is not here. But
okay.
Think of if somebody is turning off AIS here in this area, then that's called a black ship. Then it's possible to detect that black ship via radar, via other means, other satellites. So this is an excellent picture if you're running 110,000 ships in a computer program, you can detect when they are shutting it off.
Can VDES detect that, what AIS is the black ships?
No, we cannot, but we are just a part of the total ecosystem. VDES will be more protected, more data, and we can send data from one ship to another ship. This system is just collecting of data from the existing satellites today.
You were into a little bit about the timeline. Can you be a bit more specific about the timeline? When are we fully implemented?
I have it here, I think. I think what's going to happen, this is a complicated picture, but on the top level, it's a Maritime Safety Committee who takes the decision. Of course, they don't take decisions if the industry is not adopting to the technology. So this picture is showing that EALA, ITU and IEC, we are pushing IMO for taking decisions. On the MSC meeting now in May, I think, VDES will be on the agenda. Hopefully we get some good results out of it. And then you can see it's the NCSR meetings that is doing the drafting of the amendment. So hopefully we have a new standard that we can start to implement. If you go back 20 years when we started AIS, it was June 2002 for new builds. So if you were building a new ship in 2002 after the summer, if you're checking your Bible, the Solas Bible, is standing AIS there. So then you have to put an AIS transponder. It was not good for the first one. Then it's just one transponder. But now we have 110,000 out there. And they have to switch to a new box. It's like 4G to 5G. Nobody cares. If you go into the store and see 4G or 5G, you take a 5G because you know it's 4G and 3G in it. It's the same here.
Okay. Jan Len, a question?
Yes, the red areas is those areas where it's very dense areas, but you can pick up that information from shore-based stations, for instance in the British Channel. But I also wonder if we still have the minimum keyboard display in the front of the bridge also. How could we then utilize this two-way communication? For instance, if you have exchange of route, or you have ice information, you have an ice chart that you are downloaded. If IMO is not able to actually approve this cable that 50% of the vessels already have between the minimum keyboard display to the ECDIS, because you need an ECDIS or another graphical display on the bridge to actually portray the information. Have you been in any process to try to convince IMO to make it mandatory, this cable that we already have on 50% of the vessels?
It's a very complicated question. I don't think the industry cannot help you there. What we are doing, you can see, we call it CDO here. This is an extended minimum keyboard and display. We have the routes here, we have the means, but to be honest, we're not the biggest on this market. We are selling, we have 20% of the market share. So in Saab's units, we will have the routes. But to be honest, you can just do the simple minimum keyboard and display in any other.
Yes, because I believe that what happened is that we say, as authorities, and for instance in Europe, that if you want to have reduced fee because you can go without a pilot with your vessel because you have the latest technology, or you are not allowed at all to come into an icy area without the capacity to actually see the ice conditions, then the vessels will find it beneficial to invest in that equipment anyway. this cable from A to B?
It's a very good decision. If you, for example, in the Baltic Sea, saying something that we do with the NOx here in the Baltic Sea, you have to have some certain equipment for the NOx. We have, for example, down in the Panama Channel now, they are pushing new requirements that is on top of IMO, saying that you have to have certain navigation equipment, inertial nav, for example, in order to pass Panama. If you don't have it, you have to pay an additional fee of $10,000. We can do the same here. If we don't want to have these small countries that is living on these fees from IMO, here in Europe we can have some European requirements. But that is not up to us in the industry, but we can surely promote it.
Okay, a big applause, Peter. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Then we have the final presentation before we do some rounding up. So if we ask Sanna to join us on the stage, we find the presentation. And I've already received a question that if we share the presentations, and again I will just repeat myself, that we will share the PDFs and the recording after that. Sanna, please welcome, the stage is yours.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me here. I must say that I don't know whether I felt like a dinosaur, maybe. Looking at the presentation of IIS issues in 1999, I became involved with AIS in 2001, and some of my VTT colleagues are in fact here whom we worked on that topic, and I'm particularly happy about the VD issue, which we've talked mainly with Olli and Finntrafic about. But since I only have about 10 minutes, I'm not going to go deeply into the technology that we think that is needed in order to do remote pilotage. I'm more going to be doing some storytelling about how would it be maybe when we do the remote pilotage. There's a lot of things about not having any standards on this. There's no architecture. There's no definitions. I think most of you know that pilotage is a kind of art that is defined in each of the coastal countries by themselves. In general, yes, the goal is the same, to protect the environment and the human lives, etc. But the way you do it, what you demand, is fully on domestic jurisdiction. No, IMO does give some standards, but it's mainly about the ship's pilot transfer arrangements, not about how to do pilotage, and not what is demanded. And I think Jon Leon just picked up an important point. Yes, there is the authorities and then there is the industry. So today I'm coming from the point of view where I don't even represent the pilotage authority, I represent the pilotage service provider who doesn't have any say on whether there should be an architecture or standards or what kind of compulsory technology we need, what is the minimum viable product for the remote pilotage. I'm coming from the standpoint that I've been gathering for 4 years now, a group of pilotage providers in Europe, in Canada, in Australia, Singapore and others, to make this group of pilotage people saying to the authorities that yes, we can do this, and saying to the technology, but this manufacturers, but this is what we need you to do in order to facilitate this. And that is why I'm only talking about how we could do it in the future in an optimal situation. And that is the reasons why we are part of the 1C ecosystem. Because pilotage is just one of the fairway services. Just like VTS, just like other things, we exist there to support the navigators. We exist there to make sure that the fairways can be the last mile of the shipping in the logistics chain is fluent and is safe. But what can a pilotage company do alone? Very little. We know how difficult. I remember when AIS was built, and it was cheap, and it was good, and it was unbelievable. How many other inventions you know in the maritime world that would have been so cheap and so usable? And now we look at even the future world on that. But in our case, we want to depend on the ecosystem. We want to look at this from the ecosystem perspective on what is the various data produced, what is the technology that is compulsory for the ships, and what is the point of view of Wärtsilä, Kongsberg, Furuno, etc., on their views on what they want to do on the bridge. We started this about 4 years ago more intensively, and our message to the manufacturing technology is that we, as the piloted society in the world, try to provide you with an idea of some kind of industry standard on if you make these solutions to ships, we will ensure that the ships will be remotely piloted in the Baltic Sea, in the European waters, and hopefully all around the world eventually. But that is a big task, because nobody has the say in the regulation on the pilotage issues commonly. Then I'll go to the storytelling side, because that's what it is at this moment. The P&I clubs and others have been investigating accidents where pilots are involved. And one of the key issues for accidents is the lack of master pilot information exchange. True. How is it possible? My colleague from Australia just told me a couple of weeks ago that, Sanna, we've been doing this for 15 years, the development. I think that we are getting there. And I was happy because we are not. And I've talked to my Norwegian colleagues and my Danish and Swedish colleagues and Germans, and we all know that there is a lot of room for improvement, but that is mainly because the information exchange related to pilotage has not really been an issue. The maritime information exchange mainly comes from the regulation, not from these small services provided. For example, the VTS is in a bit better position because it is more regulated than pilotage. So in our view, in the future, when a ship would be remotely piloted, the information exchange would in fact start when the ship leaves the previous port. We would already provide data for the ship on how it will, for example, enter the Finnish waters. There would be their notices to seafaring for the piloted route, and when it would be closing, we would be exchanging them with the piloted route and with all other relevant information. And unlike today, when the pilot boards on the pilot boarding position, which is the signal on the corner, we would already be communicating everything relevant with the captain who will be remotely piloted. He would know, or she would know, the route, the weather, the other traffic, the other issues, the speed, the requested time for berthing, not the estimated time for berthing. So we would be actually controlling the whole process with the captain. And before the remote pilotage, before entering, for example, the Finnish narrow fairway, all the information exchange would be tested. We would have a common route plan. Everything would be okay. A bit like in the aviation control, when you close up the aviation field or the airports and you're really in the control of the air traffic. Then we talk about having a common situational awareness. That is a tricky one, since there is no piloted situational awareness unless in the heads of the pilots, and then the captain has to bridge. So what we've been discussing with the manufacturers is that what is the minimum shared consciousness? What is the situational awareness that we need to develop? That is one of the things we develop. But then we go to the data side. And I've used now for years the term that we want to create a safe tube where the ship will navigate during the passage on the piloted fairway. At the moment, the tube is created in the pilot's and the captain's head by looking at different monitors and information, and there are some conning on the conning place where you can see actually already the data that has been analyzed and produced as some kind of picture. But mainly the pilots use very traditional information and do decision making on that. So when we take the pilot away from the ship and put to a remote piloted center, we need to know that the captain and the pilot has exactly the same understanding of the situation. So how do we create that? Not only by providing some verbal communications or even having a common picture on things, we believe that this is where we need the intelligent fairways. We need the data information exchange, for example, that the VTS does. We need new tools. We need new examples of what can be calculated and what can be done in order to make sure that the captain has the same understanding as the pilot would be, so the safe navigational tube. In order not to make it too expensive in the beginning, we've for 2 years now made analysis on how many of the ships that we pilot in Finland, how many percentage of those the captain himself or herself does the harbor maneuvers. And the percentage varies, but it's far too small. So in far too many cases, the pilot actually does all the harbor maneuvers, communicates with the tugboats and the port people. So we can't trust the remote pilot in the beginning to do that. So we want to make sure that the threshold for getting remote piloted in the beginning is rather low on the technology-wise so that it can be implemented, but the competence requirement for the ship's crew are high. And then we believe that eventually when the technology on board the ships and on the fairways gets better, we can come down with the competence requirements and come up with the technology requirements. There are things that the remote pilot can easily, even nowadays, assist the captain on maneuvering. It is related to berthing positions, having the berth ready for berthing, the cranes being in, the linesman being there, etc., etc. But remote pilotage will be a cloud service. So we will have a cloud. This is the idea that we are doing now with different countries, that we will have a cloud of data from different data providers on which we use for the analytics that we will be providing. We will be gathering data from ship sensors, from the fairway, from meteorological information, from the port, etc. But we will not only be providing this data to everybody, but we will be doing analysis on the cloud and then providing back to the ship and to the remote piloted center. But as I said in the beginning, there is no standards, there is no definitions, there is not even a terminology for pilotage. So when you jump to a world where the pilot is in the shoreside and the captain is alone on the bridge, at the moment there is no standard phraseology for that. So what we first have to do is we have to decide how to train this new generation of pilots and the new generation of captains. What kind of terminology will they use explicitly? The language that is now used on the bridges is not, it's far from being good enough to be doing something like this remotely. But the connectivity will of course be an issue. We need, in Finland, there's not even 3G in every place. It's a lot of fairways where you don't have connectivity at all. So yes, we have to first look at what are the fairways that we can do, how can we create the connectivity there, what kind of redundancy can we make there, and then of course we need to decide what are the technologies that we will choose to do this. Then we will have to prove to the authorities that this is as safe as the traditional pilotage. For that we've already done formal safety assessment work, so we have a framework already established based on what we will be doing this with Aalto University in particular on how to evaluate. But it's all linked to the whole ecosystem, on the fairway ecosystem, and creating the cybersecurity for all these activities that we are planning. And from that on, we can start building the architecture, the validation of the measure technology that we're going to use to test it, and finalize the risk assessments in order to be proposing some kind of regulations and standards and the actual processes of remote pilotage to make this happen. It's not fully storytelling at the moment. There's a lot of work to be done, but I'm not going to go into that. There are several projects, some projects ongoing, some have already been finished and more are to be started. But we did do some kind of demonstration. It was more about the data exchange, but it was also about the feasibility of this idea. So we had, together with the C4 Value Research Group and ASL Shipping as providing us the testbed, the ships, and then Novia providing us the space for the remote piloted center, which you can see here, and also Bright House doing the information exchange. We did one demo drive in the Kokkola fairway, and even though we found out a lot of development issues, which is of course good, I think the biggest information from this demonstration to our pilots doing the everyday work was that this is doable. And that's priceless. In order to get a pilot to tell me that, yes, we can do this. Many of the countries that I talk to say that, but doesn't your pilot sort of like say that, no, we can't do that? Yes, they hesitate and they have their questions, but they believe here in Finland that, yes, we can do this. The setup was very small, some smart box to collect the data, and we didn't even look so much on what data did we collect, but that was not important. The main important was that we collected ship from the ship and we transmitted to the, successfully to our remote pilot center, and we knew that in a bigger scale this is totally doable with the setup that we have decided. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was very interesting. Your colleague in Australia said 15 years.
On the master pilot information.
Yes,
on the master pilot information.
On the master pilot information. Yeah. So to remove forward in order to work on the standardization and architecture, what you're mentioning, how do you cooperate with other industry that are delivering this, like Masterly in Norway, that are doing a similar approach? How do you work with other entities?
We work with pilotage organizations and manufacturing technology, because Masterly and others are actually looking at the autonomous ships, and we are actually looking to the existing fleet.
Okay.
Trying to provide, and we've already had, we've gathered with, we have I think at the moment about 20 different countries whom we participate in this, and we have actively participating with 11 countries. We are, this year we are, actually I will be speaking in Rome next week, and we will have a meeting with some of the main partner countries on this, and we will be applying for CEF funding for this project called Nelson. This year of course, but the funding ends at January 2024.
I don't know if you were here when Jon Leon had his presentation about route info on Safe Sea. You were, yes.
No.
But there was also talk about remote pilots, Jon Leon, and AI, bringing that to. Could that be something that works together? That you have the remote pilots, but you also use the AI and predictability, in order to deliver that, and also to reach the kind of the common standards and the architecture to work a step-by-step approch.
Definitely, I was actually attending just for my own presentation the emerging technologies on the ILA work group, and I'm actually working together with my colleague in pilotage in Norway. But I believe that because pilotage is so uninteresting to everybody, so it is really difficult to get the word out, sort of like, could we look at the remote pilotage as part of all of the development that you are doing? Because then when you go to an autonomous ship, you're looking at the future, and we want to develop services to the present fleet, and the ships, of course, being built at the moment.
Marco?
Yes, if I have understood right, pilotage is kind of your business, and if you succeed well enough, you kind of, in automating this pilotage, aren't you kind of disrupting your own business, or is that a purpose?
In
Why
a way,
are you doing
could say
this?
that the pilotage can't exist for just that there is pilotage. I don't believe that when these ships that are being drawn today, that they will be realized in 20 years, that no one will need pilots anymore. But meanwhile, there will be a need even for traditional pilotage for years and years to come, because if you all know the average age of the global fleet. So they will not change like one night. So we will be remotely piloting and piloting if we succeed for the next 20 years. But then eventually there will be no need for pilots anymore, if everything goes well as planned. But that again, then I can go and retire. So.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sanna, and big applause for Sanna. If I can ask Olli, Marco, and Maria here on the stage, and if I can get the microphone, Alex. Thank you so much. and I can hand it over to you, and then Olli here, and maybe Marco at the microphone over there. No, don't be shy. Here next. So, there. Yes, you there, you can, and maybe, yes, and then we go closer to each other. We have ITS Estonia, we have Finntrafic, we have ITS Finland and ITS Norway here. I just want to ask you a question, and the same question to all three of you, that what are the key takeaways away from here today?
I think for me, for ITS Estonia, we haven't been dealing with Maritime ITS basically at all, if we don't talk about smart ports and maybe a bit maritime single window. But otherwise, it is very new field to us. So this is the key takeaway for us, that this is a topic that's an important part of multimodality, and we should take a closer look at that topic inside Estonian ITS ecosystem in the future. And also, you are all welcome to Estonia, as we already heard. Probably next one will be in Tallinn.
That's very good.
Most probably.
Olli?
Thank you, Jenny. From my point of view, I think this highlights the issue that how many stakeholders, how many activities are happening. You have ports and hinterland traffic, you have communication devices, you have satellites, you have 4G, you have remote pilots, you have multiple actors, huge amount of standards, and nobody can really make a sense out of that mess in one glimpse. So I think there's a need for a bridge builder between different activities and domains, and ITS could be that.
Just a small question to you for tomorrow. We will continue this discussion, right?
Yeah, this is one of the topics for tomorrow.
Okay, good.
Yes, and to be honest, there were some presentations that I didn't understand very well. Actually, I didn't understand the word, to be honest. But there were some that I understood, and especially smart ports, all those solutions you have done, and all the benefit you have reached with those. Also this basic philosophy about connectiveness and data ecosystems and all the kind of possibilities it creates. And maybe the last one was Jon Leon, I think, said that if we do it here in the Nordics, others could follow us. And I would like to add not only to follow us, but to buy those solutions from our companies. And that is maybe the main reason that we are doing this kind of collaboration and ecosystem development in ITS Finland.
Marco, what next? I mean, Maria has now invited us, or for Tallinn has invited us for the next workshop. From your perspective, what's next?
We will be also there in Tallinn.
I know that, but
after that, of
no,
course.
No, it's a general question. I see it's late.
Yes, I think this was good beginning, and we will continue with cooperation with others, and I'm not sure what to promise next. I have to think it over, and we have to discuss a bit, because usually when I promise something, I tend to try to kind of keep that promise, and now I don't have any courage to promise more.
But you can promise that we will continue this discussion in Lisbon.
Yes, of course. There will be actually all of us.
This is like talking, I'm sorry, I know I'm a Finn and he's a Finn, but this is like I'm wanting to drag more of him, and he's just answering very shortly to my questions, but he had so much more on his heart beforehand. So he...
But if you ask after networking cocktails...
No. At the Nordic Plus Pavilion in Lisbon, we will be there. You will also have a Maritime ITS session.
A special session about, about the data sharing and data spaces, how that can be utilized in the maritime environment.
And that has been accepted into the program?
It has been accepted.
And there you will be talking?
I will be probably moderating it as we have done some changes.
And then Ernulf will be participating?
Yes.
And who else will be participating?
We are still looking, we are replacing a few people.
Very good. When you're saying that, because there is an then invitation for a special interest session about data and maritime ITS in Lisbon. So if you feel like, right, I'm going there, or I have something to say, please contact also Olli, so we get that session fulfilled. What is important for us is to showcase at these ITS Europe and ITS World Congresses that maritime is a part of the ITS sector, and we are the only ones basically doing it, meaning the Nordic region. So I urge you all to join us as well there.
Can I have one comment?
Yes,
Sorry.
please.
Lisbon means ITS European Congress, which takes place on 22nd and 24th of May. Just a small comment.
Yes, I obviously assumed everyone knew what I was talking about. Any final comments or questions from the audience to any of these final contestants? Yes, Jan Leon. I will have to ask you to take this microphone and then I will have to bring that one back.
Yes, I can say something. We had a project chaired by Sweden. That it was STM, it was Monolith, and then we had a BaltSafe project. And suddenly it's an Interreg project. Suddenly I was invited to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Why? Because for Norway, this region, the Baltic countries, Denmark, Sweden and Finland, and indeed Germany was so important. So we always have a political pressure to actually do something together in this Nordic part of Europe. So we will do it anyway when it comes to maritime transport. And I hope that you in the ITS world will grab that opportunity like they have done in Norway and follow us. We will be there anyway and do the projects.
Any comments on that, or?
Yes, of course, we join you.
Yeah. Fully supported.
Good. If there are no other comments, questions, or remarks, I thank you so much for your time. I thank all the great presentations, and I thank the hosts for doing this, and see you tomorrow at the workshop. Enjoy your cocktails and networking.